And the thing that you'll see with like pretty much anything that goes viral is it's like there's two comments that every person is making basically. And with this one, it was basically at first I thought it was a black square, and then I zoomed in. That was like the main number one comment. Second comment was, I still don't see it. What is it supposed to be?
Hey, how's it going? You are here for Heavy Art Talk, and today I am extremely excited. I'm going to be talking with Christian Degn. Christian and I, we've probably been, DMing and talking for like the last 6 months, just like on Instagram. So it's definitely cool to get the chance to speak with him. But just a little bit about Christian. He has worked with a ton of bands, just to name a few: Deafheaven, Pelican, Yob, Pallbearer, Blackwing, Scarcity, Inner Arma, Yellow Eyes, list goes on. Christian, how's it going, dude?
Hello.
So we're recording on a Thursday. Episodes typically come out Thursday, and it's spring here in Georgia. What's it like in Utah?
It's nice today. I thought it was going to rain today, and it's just been really. I mean, it's a little cloudy, but it's nice. It's been wonderful out here lately. It's definitely not as hot as Georgia, I'm sure, though.
Yeah, because you mentioned that you've traveled here and even to like the really southern parts of Georgia as well.
Yeah, it gets hot. I'm not built for that. I think I think I can handle the heat from being in Utah, and then you get into the humidity, and it's a different story.
Oh yeah, 100%. Where did you predominantly grow up? What state?
So I was born on the East Coast. I was born in Maryland, and we moved to Utah when I was really young. And yeah, I've basically been in Provo most of my life. It's a great little town, though. Beautiful mountains, tons of photo reference. Just 5-minute drive from my house. It's I run up in the mountains every day too, so it's great. I love it.
It is interesting how our settings play into the work that we create. Even sometimes it's the small little things. You, and we'll cover a lot of your art, but you have a lot of really awesome mountain scenes and stuff. But for me, just really quick, I was doing a drawing recently, and without even thinking about it, the tree that I drew was a pine tree because they're everywhere in Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's I didn't even think about it. I was just that's what a tree looks like,
Yeah, and I think also it does inform mark making as well. I think the types of lines you tend to pull. At least I think we're both line people, so I don't know if it's the same for stipple people necessarily, or painters, but yeah, I feel the lines I pull feel very much like they're based on rocks. I really just love the structure, and the solidity of there's the surface, and then there's just this thing all the way through. I've always loved that and wanted to convey that in my drawings. And yeah, I think your work definitely has a swampy feel to it. It has a
yeah,
a nice it reminds me of all of the what do they call that, the Spanish the kudzu that drips off the trees,
and the Spanish moss and stuff.
The Spanish moss,
all over.
Yeah,
that's all over pretty. Savannah.
Yeah, so pretty. Yeah, I feel like your stuff has kind of that vibe to it, maybe.
Yeah, well, I did one painting recently that was based off a photo I took in Savannah. It was a Savannah New Year's Eve. I was with my buddy, and just the lighting was perfect. And it's one of those paintings where I definitely kept it very close to the reference because the picture I took was pretty enough as is.
Oh, nice. Have you posted that one?
Yeah, I posted it probably a couple months ago. It has a paper on it and stuff. It's a watercolor. Okay. I've been. I think
I do know the one. Yeah, yeah, very cool.
But enough about me, man. In terms of kind of starting out with art, has it been a lifelong passion for you? You really young age were starting to pick it up?
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel really lucky. Both my parents worked in academia. They were both professors of English and literature type stuff. My mom did medieval studies. My dad was in romanticism. So long history with that stuff, and just because of that, they had a lot of friends who were like professional artists who like did it as their, primary gig. And so there was never really a sense of like, it didn't feel like you couldn't do that, the way that I think most people look at it and are kind of like, what are you doing? So in that regard, I definitely feel really lucky. And yeah, it's like, as soon as I could hold a pencil, it was like game over. Like this is all I want to do. Like it was either that or it was Legos, like.
Yeah. Oftentimes we are drawn to like one or the other as kids.
Oh yeah.
Were you a kid who was obsessed with trains or dinosaurs? It seems like that's
Dude. Oh, you have my number, bro. Trains, of course.
You were trains. Oh, I was
a train kid. Oh yeah. See, dinosaurs were too scary for me. Like I liked the structure of a train. It was very like, that's that's awesome.
Isn't that how it works though?
That is though. Yeah. It's like, that's the two childhoods you get as a young man in America.
I think I've seen like those memes where it's like, the starter pack memes. I think I've seen like you're a 5-year-old kid,
Dude, that's funny. Yeah. Yeah. I was obsessed with trains as a little kid, like basically until I was like probably like 5 or 6. And then after that, it was like all Legos. And that was just like, that was the creative like language that clicked with my brain that just, I still like think of that like version of kind of building ideas in a way.
Yeah.
Of like because as a kid, I remember I would have like little parts that I would like the way these shapes looked together, and I'd slowly kind of try to assemble those to like fit things together. And I still work that way with drawing and with music, where it's like I'll have these little parts and I'm kind of filling in the gaps and trying to flesh those out. And yeah, it feels like it really deeply informed how I look at all of my like creative practice.
Yeah, it's like there's like the construction aspect, but like an engineer's mindset too. I don't want to put
totally, yeah,
but like that's so cool. And like I kind of see it now. It's like things are clicking as I'm like looking at your work, because like it is highly meticulous. I mean, I know people throw around the detail oriented kind of thing all the time, because like that's a very common thing that anybody gets, like, oh, your art's so detailed. But let me put it this way. When I was putting together the slide deck, my computer graphics card couldn't handle your background trying to distort. So I had to make the images like as big as possible.
Yeah. I get in the weeds. It's actually a problem I'm trying to solve right now, is like, how can I keep working in a way that's like honest to what I love, which is like what I see is what I want to draw. But like, how can I speed that process up and not just get so caught in the weeds? And how can I, it's like you look at, I know you've mentioned Proco quite a few times, and I love those videos. And the one thing he's always hammering home is, like hierarchy of form, blocky shapes first and then work your way back to details. And I think because of the way I do ink, especially with like that Scarcity cover, that's kind of the backdrop right now. With that piece, I was really fixated on showing the like reflected light that exists in a shadow. It's like I think this drawing is the first time I understood that phrase of like the lightest dark is darker than the darkest light, which
yes,
I've heard it a million times, never understood it. It always felt like nonsense to me. I like would sit and stroke my chin about that for hours, just like, what does this mean? And I had a friend who just like drew a value chart for me at one point, my friend Jefferson. He's just like, dude, look, it's this. And it just like, it clicked immediately. It was like, oh, I just needed to see it, because people keep telling me this, catchphrase, and it's meaningless, But yeah, I feel like because I've been trying to convey that, I inevitably have to kind of work from details first back out into the structure. And that's been something that I'm trying to kind of like figure out how to, whether I keep leaning in that direction or if I do have to pull back and like look at things in a different way. Cause yeah, like with the Scarcity piece or even like the album cover I did for my project last year, those two drawings were ones where I was really interested in, like the light that exists in the shadow and the forms that exist of like texture on a form. and how to like achieve all of these variables with just pen and ink. And inevitably, I ended up just basically constructing each rock, out of the details. And it's literally what every teacher in school told me not to do. And I I definitely am like, I feel like I'm in a bit of a cocoon with art right now, as far as like trying to figure out whether I push it in that direction further, or actually do start trying to implement the like hierarchy of form as it's taught to us.
Yeah, I mean, I look at your work and I feel like you just keep getting better. So whatever that path
Thank you.
is, it needs to just ultimately come from yourself and what you see, because like you obviously are you're educated in art enough to know a lot of the things that you need to know, and then the things that you can choose to ignore that create style. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And I think it's it's been a blessing and a curse for sure. Being like, I think I get in the weeds a little bit sometimes, and it does turn into like a not seeing the forest for the trees kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so it can be, but then other times, I think it started because I used to have kind of a slogan for myself, which was like, if I can see it, somebody else can see it. And like, if I see it, I need to show it. Like, and whether that was like, if I hear a mistake in a take on a song I'm writing, or if I hear, or rather, if I see like a place where my ink got smudged, or where a stray mark happened, like, it was all about like reining it in, being like not being meticulous for the sake of being meticulous, but being meticulous for the sake of like kind of just trying to to tighten up, I guess, and to like make sure that I don't know. Yeah, saying it out loud now, I'm like, that sounds almost like paranoid. Like somebody's gonna catch on. Like,
Well, no,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
dude, I get it the same way, man. I mean, the interesting thing with the show is realizing that everybody values different things in their own art, but they usually share a lot more in common than you might initially think in terms of what they value in other people's art.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because that's true. Like in other people's art, I definitely don't. I don't feel that same
You don't have those
compulsion to.
expectations.
No way, no. Like I feel way open to like, I'm very much like, generally I try to be like the more the merrier. Like I love seeing, people just pick up a pen and try to see what happens. And uh it's, yeah, when stuff comes out, like sometimes the naivety of that, especially for people who are earlier, like they'll find shorthands for ideas that are just like pretty brilliant to me.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you follow my friend Casey runs a page on Instagram called The Drawing Stall. Are you aware of this page?
No, never heard of it.
It's really great. It's like it's just like kind of his love letter to like people who draw. Like it's just, he wants to like highlight artists who draw. And so it's a lot of like stuff that just you would not really see, especially just in our kind of, metal world.
Right.
I think there's kind of expectations that people have for the type of art that gets proliferated. And Casey does a great job of like highlighting art that you just would never expect to see. And it really is mind opening stuff. Like, it's just really cool. Really.
So kind of like outsider art in a sense.
I don't want to say it's outsider art, because a lot of these people are trained, a lot of the people that he shares, but it's like, it's people who like are finding solutions for ideas that are just beyond where I live. They're just like beyond like what I'm used to seeing. And so it's really exciting stuff. I highly recommend checking out that page. I'll send them to you off air, but
yeah, please do, man. What were we talking about though? What was the main thing?
I know. I was just trying to get back to it.
Fine.
Oh, just
I think
that,
we're just talking about style and like what.
Yeah.
It is weird how I don't know. I value it. The grass is always greener sometimes too, because we're
Totally.
both the more meticulous, highly rendered kind of folks. We have
Yeah,
very different interests in subject matter, which is very cool. But like, I think we probably both have the same amount of agony in terms of like how
I
careful
see
we
it.
are with
Yeah.
like every move, you know?
Yeah, I see it. Especially like I know like my probably my favorite piece of yours is the knight like turning into like noodles while he's fighting the dragon, you know?
Oh
Like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
warrior, he's like getting like liquefied. That piece is so sick. Like I was looking at that the other night and like the reflections on the tile of the floor is like dude, like that you had a light hand on that. Like you were like breathing on the paper for that. That's so sick. Like yeah, I love that.
Uh, tiniest micron I could find, and then I used a little bit of Copic markers on that too. So I
Oh,
used
okay, that helps.
Moray,
Yeah.
and then it makes it
Okay, so
has
you
kind of a
get
wash like effect.
nice. Okay. I've wanted to try that a little bit because I do feel like it would be nice to get a little bit of
It'll
like
save you time. I'll tell you that.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm like I am using the 003 microns and then occasionally I'll get the 05s and
Mhm.
um sometimes oh this one's not quite there but usually if you've drawn with them for a while the tip will kind of start to bend a little
Oh
bit.
yeah. Yep.
And you can hold it like it almost draws like a brush. It's really nice. Like like you can get
It's
these
like you can do
really
these
nice.
whip strokes. You know, that's kind of how I
Yeah,
do it.
yeah. And you can get like these kind of nice like I noticed especially when you're like when you're in a nice flow, you can get these kind of the natural just like movement of your hand across the paper will give you this like kind of wiggle. I feel like I see it in Jeremy Bastian's work sometimes. He kind of
Hmm.
you'll see marks like that, and like when I can get a line that's as good as his, I'm just like, oh hell yeah, like that like makes my day. Like even though the rest of the drawing's probably not even close, but you know,
He's a very skilled artist, and I look at his stuff, and what's interesting, and this comes from just taste and immediate like what I see, right? But the more I look at his work, the more I really like it. But for some reason, when I first look at it, it doesn't have nearly the impact that it
oh
seems like
yeah,
for
I
other
mean,
people. It's
I think
interesting.
I think some of it is he doesn't have a huge hierarchy of value.
Yeah, and
Like
I'm like obsessed with that.
yeah, I know. I see that in your work. I'm more in that school. I'm trying to break out of it. I think the Pelican drawing was a really good step in that direction for me because I do think high contrast has a huge impact, and I know this in my heart, and it is so hard for me to like let go of the details to like let them just fall into a shadow. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, and inevitably what ends up happening is I a lot of the time will end up bumping up my contrast digitally after the fact just because it it just makes it feel a little richer, you know. But with Bastion's work, like yeah, he really sticks between like a 2 or 3 on the light end and like a like 7 or 8 on the dark end. Like he doesn't really go past that if you know if 10 is as dark as you can go. But
There's a
it's
subtlety to it, and he's extremely good at
oh
just
dude,
drawing
yeah.
it. I mean,
Yeah. And his
if he's ever
ideas
listening,
too, like
I would love to have him on the show. So I don't want to like.
oh yeah.
It's
No,
just.
he would
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
oh I was just gonna say, yeah, no, he it's his ideas of like what he's portraying and then it's the execution like it's just everything is like top notch.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a machine. Like it blows my mind the work he does and like the fact that he uses a brush for so much of it too like really
he
blows my
does.
mind. But he
Wow.
does. He's mostly brush. I think he's been getting into microns though, and that's like I kind of noticed it when I started pulling lines, and I was like, these kind of look like his recent like these recent Jeremy Bastion things, and I started seeing that he was leaning into micron a little bit. Um, yeah, huge fan of his work. Um, and also there's a guy. Do you know Ben Tolman?
No.
Ben Tolman's fantastic. He's kind of more of a gallery art guy. Really cool, like isometric. These huge, you know, like 36-inch tall by 48 inches wide. These like massive cityscapes that are all isometric, kind of like that angle of like Diablo or a game like that, you know.
Oh, okay.
But he'll do like these like cross sections of like buildings and like all these figures. He's totally fantastic. But he's very like he's very crosshatchy. And yeah, I know he uses like kind of dead microns to achieve that. And I like the one time I DM'd him, I was asking him about this because I had a suspicion. And this is something I've been kind of like using as a secret weapon, but I really like Micron because it's erasable. Like the ink, like, and a
You
lot
could
of my
lift
friends
it.
complain. Yeah, and a lot of my friends complain about that because they like go to erase their pencils and they pull up a bunch of lines they have to re-ink. Um, but I kind of don't care about stray pencil marks showing up in my pieces. After I saw, Vania Zuravlyov, he did a cover for this band Latitudes. That's an amazing piece of like this dog barking at this huge boar. It's such a sick drawing. Um,
Not familiar.
oh, dude, check out that album's really sick too.
Latitudes.
Yeah, Latitudes, and I think it's just self-titled. I could be wrong,
Okay.
but yeah, this I think he's a Russian guy, Vania Zuravlyov. He does this really really nice. He's done some like collabs with Aaron Horkey and stuff. Yeah,
Can't go wrong there, man.
exactly, yeah. But I remember I bought that record for a friend for Christmas, and I was looking at the cover up close, and there were so many pencil marks. You could see the texture of the paper he had drawn it on and stuff. I was like, you know what? Like, why am I obsessing over getting rid of this pencil? And so I kind of stopped caring about that and started using the fact that I can run an eraser over something to like pull that value up, like put down a layer of hatching and then erase it and then put a new layer over top of it. Now you have a midtone that you don't have anywhere else in the drawing. And you can really start to modulate with that in really fun ways. I also recently, I can show you one of these. My new secret weapon, my girlfriend's dad teaches illustration, or he teaches drawing, but he's an illustrator. But he turned me onto these erasers they're my new secret weapon. I almost don't want to tell people about them because I'm like, don't buy them up. Like, I feel like that happened when the 003 microns started showing up in like the craft stores around here. Like people started buying them. Like, no, like those were my secret weapons. But yeah, I'm trying not to be a gatekeeper anymore. That's my character arc right now. Is like leave the.
I'm with you, man.
So
Abundance mindset.
these are so sick. Have you ever seen these? These are monotombo sand erasers for ink, and you can.
Is it Tombow brand?
Mm-hmm.
I love that brand, man. I like this is Tombow, right? Yeah, these.
Yeah, those Tombow little eraser pens. Yeah, those are sick
great.
too. Dude, this is a game changer for ink. If you have a stray mark that goes, if it's not too dark, you can just like pick it right up and it will like no problem. It'll erase it. And it does.
You're talking it erases like, the ink as well as the pencil. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it'll erase anything, and it also is great for colored pencil too. My girlfriend works in colored pencil, and she has had a lot of luck with them as well.
Sand eraser. I'm writing it down.
Yeah, it's called a sand eraser, and you'd think like when you see it, it looks like violent, like it's like really coarse.
It looks like sandpaper, dude.
Yeah, you'd think like it would tear through the page, and I've shown it to people, and they're like, "Dude, you're gonna like mess up your paper that way." And I mean, if I'm going really hard on it, you'll maybe leave a little bit of a scuff that if like the light catches the paper in the right way, you'll kind of see it. But you have to really work at it to get. This is on Bristol. I don't know how it. I'm sure if you were like using a watercolor paper, like a cold press, like it might be a different story. I've never messed with that, but
chew it up a little.
Yeah, I think it could, but on something like a Bristol board, it's like butter. It's so sick. Like really recommend these. I got my friend. You maybe know the artist Zabernet. He's a Portuguese comic guy.
Mm-hmm. He's awesome. We featured some of his art in one of the last panels.
Oh, very sick. Yeah,
we talked about
one of my favorites. Yeah, I have a bunch of shirts I have to mail to him soon here. He's the best though. But yeah, so I turned him onto these, and he's been singing their praises too. So I feel like that's the stamp of approval right there in my mind, is like if Zay's using them, like that's pretty sick. So yeah, highly recommend those.
So hardness or softness of pencil do you typically work with for
know,
final?
Man. I mean, I just use these like Graph Gear 005s. Is
that mechanical?
Mechanical. And yeah, I try to pencil as little as I can, to be honest. Like lately, I guess it depends on the piece. Because I kind of go back and forth between doing something that's highly rendered trying to, basically be a human photocopier. And then I inevitably get sick of that and need to do something just fully out of my imagination and just play around. And I don't share as much of that stuff. I think maybe some of the slides I gave you are some of that material, but that's just to like exercise that gear or that muscle, like get back into like being able to conceptualize in my head beyond just what a photo is showing me. Yeah, because I think to me, like, I can tell when somebody's using a photo reference versus when somebody's using a photo reference that they understand. I don't have a problem with photo reference at all. But to me, it's like the point of me using the reference is to understand the reference. It's not so much to convey the reference. I don't really care about that part. Like, it's really about like, do I know what these rocks are doing? Do I know how they're interacting with each other? Do I know what this like tree is doing? Do I know what the dirt's doing? Do I know if there's like a figure in the piece or whatever? Do I know how they are interacting with the land? Like it's really about like understanding what is happening in the scene and then flattening that. That's my and because a camera can do that instantaneously, it's like, why would I not use that? But yeah, I think like definitely early on in like my kind of my practice, when I would use photo reference, I would lean way too heavily on the photo reference and not really dissect what was happening in it. And that it just looked like tracing, it just didn't look good. So, sorry, what was your question?
We're just talking. now with, when you're saying you think that look too much like tracing, I guess, what are the tells for that per se? Like if you were to see it objectively, do you think you would say the same things about the work, maybe internally?
Oh yeah.
Like if it wasn't created by you, Oh
yeah. Yeah. I feel like you can kind of tell. Like, I think there's just the biggest tell for me is like, where are they choosing to outline a shape versus where are they choosing to like show, like let that shape be implied by light and shadow,
soft
like
edges and stuff.
Yeah. Cause it's like, if you're drawing a hard edge where that corner is like, it's facing me essentially, and I'm seeing a hard line going around that corner or something, I know that you're starting to understand what shapes you're seeing, but there's something getting lost in translation. That's like it's like flattening it into a shape rather than letting it be a form, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah. No, that makes total sense. And then the other tell is like, and dude, I say this because I'm guilty of it too. All right.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we all are.
Less guilty now, but I was definitely more of it. But like,
yeah,
dude, doing the unnecessary details that are not actually supporting where your eyes should be.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
that's something
one of the
like
biggest tells.
Yeah, it is. And like, I still get hung up on that when I am using photo reference. Like that to me is like one of the things where I like, it's like, what's the line for me personally between like internalizing what those details look like and then just like regurgitating them, And I think there's definitely some work that I have that I'm not super proud of, where I feel like I still am just leaning on those details for the sake of details. They aren't actually like building to anything. And yeah, that stuff where I feel like I have outgrown some of that now, which is a good feeling. But yeah, I mean, I do lean very heavily on like, as far as like process goes, for the really rendered stuff, basically I am using a light table, but because Bristol's so thick, you don't really get much more than like a little bit of the shadow. You get like basic shadow shapes, and those kind of serve as a landmark. And so I'll use those landmarks to basically build an organic shaped grid. Like the picture becomes a grid of how I'm kind of like building it. And so I'll have my reference taped beneath my paper on the light table, and then I'll have the reference again printed out that I will fold as I go and keep it as close to the thing next to it as possible, and just be comparing each value as though you were just gridding it out the way you do in like early in art school. But because it's organic, because I'm using the shadow shapes rather than actually having a grid, it helps. It kind of keeps it from getting that like same stiffness. Like it lets it be the thing it is,
Yeah, it's an interpretation of what you're seeing here.
Yeah, and there's still like a lot of decision making going into like what direction do these lines need to go? Like that is like the biggest question I'm always asking myself is like what, because like you can turn a group of a group of hatching any direction, and it'll accomplish a different thing. And I feel like I'm getting a lot more confident in like knowing what direction just organically feels right for those shapes to like convey that form. But yeah, that is also, I think that's a big tell for me as well, as when I see people leaning too heavily on their reference or tracing, if their lines are just kind of they're just kind of going, yeah, they could be really fine, like really delicately laid in, but just because of the fact that they're going in a direction that feels so, to me, unintuitive for like the shape they're trying to convey, that to me is a big tell. And I'm sure there are examples of people who break that rule and who do it like masterfully, like better than I could, and they're probably pulling lines that I'm like, I would never do that. Actually, I can think like, I think Virgil Finlay sometimes does that, where I'm like, I would never put that line in that direction, but it's like working. So, who am I to judge, but, and I think stuff like that is kind of where like, style, people always talk about style. I think that's where style starts to kind of come through, is it's in decision making, basically.
Yeah. And decision making, conscious and unconscious,
Mm-hmm.
like that's so much part of it too, is there's the part of the brain that when you're in a flow state is just making decisions without you even second guessing them. And that's all when you create some of you have those breakthroughs, at least for me. I'm speaking.
Yeah, I have breakthroughs. I also really wreck stuff sometimes when I'm like that. Like if I'm just going and just like cruising, listening to music or a podcast, and like I suddenly like look down, I'm like, oh, like I just really ruined this. Like, and then you get to react to that decision, and that becomes its own problem. And it's not too bad, but I've backed myself into corners before with stuff like that.
I can relate there as well. Let me see. What about finding like metal music? How old were you then? And do you have any?
Oh yeah,
early stories?
That's funny. So I mean, I live in Provo, Utah, so it's like there's no metal here. Like, this is like Mormon capital of the world. Like, this is Mormon Mecca. Like, this is like, it's really there's no metal out here, which is fun. Like, I kind of like it in a way, but so in like, I want to say I was like 13 or 14 when my parents bought me a bass guitar. I played marching band types. Did the trumpet thing for a minute and didn't like it. I'm somebody who I like to practice in solitude. I like to get things their best behind closed doors. Like I don't love filming like progress videos or like time lapses of myself. I'll do it sometimes now, but like it's like pulling teeth. I don't like it. And then, so for practicing trumpet was like impossible. You can't do it because people hear you. And like, to me, that was just like, I don't want that. I don't want people to have to hear me practicing. So getting a bass guitar and like a little amp with headphone jack, I was like, this is sick. Like I could play, I could practice through this. And around that same time, I had a friend who like showed me System of a Down. That was like the band that was like, oh, this is like kind of hard. Like, this is cool. And, they swear. That's crazy. It was very sheltered upbringing. But, and then, so, I started learning some of their songs on bass and was kind of like, this is fun, And then I think when I was like about 14 or 15, one day, a kid who went to the same church as me, but he was like, into metal, always had the Pantera shirt and stuff. My buddy Paul, he was like, dude, come over to my house. I'm going to burn you some CDs. And so he burnt me like Slayer, Christ Illusion had just come out. And dude, that record like ripped my face off. It was so sick. Like, I just remember like this goes so hard. I was like scared of it too, but it was like so sick that I didn't care. He burnt me some other stuff. He burnt me a bunch of thrash, he burnt me like Dimmu Borgir, stuff like that. But the one that really,
you're like around the same age as me then, right? Are you?
Yeah, I'm 30. So
you're 30. Okay. I'm 32.
Yeah.
It is all like hitting home for me too.
Oh yeah. No, like Christ Illusion, dude, that record, like so sick. And yeah, after that, it was just like, that was it. Like I was stuck there, you know, and like still am. Um, and yeah, it's funny too, because like I remember, I mean, yeah, I don't know how much of the story you even need to hear, but like I was going to the school and one of the art teachers there saw my sketchbook and was like really freaked out by it because I was like drawing like zombies and stuff. And she, you know, she like really laid into me about it and like in a way that was like pretty inappropriate looking back on it. But you know, I'm like 14 at the time. And so I told my parents about it and they were like, yo, that's like kind of not cool. Do you want to go to a different high school? I was like, yeah, I do. And so I started at this other high school that's like kind of more downtown, and it was like just a way better vibe. And they had a screen printing program there. So I learned all about making shirts and was just obsessed with it. Like just made shirts all the time. And it's really funny. Like I always think about how, like in high school, I really wanted to draw comics. To me, that felt like it's like I can make comics, and that's a way to like make a paycheck drawing pictures. Like that feels like a good, like safe route to take.
Yeah, career
And
path.
I never finished comics. I would start them all the time. Started, you know, so many, like I have pages and pages and pages, but never could bring myself to finish an actual whole story arc. And the whole time I'm doing that, I was just printing band shirts. You know, I was like making band shirts for my high school band at the time. Um, I was like making bootleg shirts of bands that I liked, making, you know, comic shirts of like comic book characters and stuff, like just like really having fun with that. And it's funny that I was telling myself, you know, oh, like someday I'm going to draw comics. It's like, no, you're going to do what you're already doing. Like the thing you do, the thing you do. And like the thing you do is you make band shirts, and like you are obsessed with band shirts. And that's where you're going to end up spending all of your energy and time and money is like on band shirts. So, you know, I always found that really funny.
That is interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, music and art were always like melded to me. They were, or like, you know, they were always like one and the same. They never felt separate the way I think a lot of people view them. Because so much of the experience of music for me was visual, where it's like the art is so sick. The book that comes with it's cool. Like finding, you know, finding the JPEG on Google and putting it in your iTunes, you know, like all these things, like really important stuff to me, you know, and like, so
It is weird
yeah,
how
like,
important that was back in the iTunes days.
oh
Where it's
yeah.
like, it would drive me nuts if I didn't have the album art to
Yeah,
go along with it.
if you rip a CD onto your computer, it doesn't have any of the metadata, so you're like having to add it. Oh, nightmare, dude. Yeah, that was fun though. I liked that stuff, and yeah, like I feel like between that and then just like all the time, like just like looking through like what was that, a T-shirt Slayer website, just like
Mm-hmm.
looking at like just the catalogs of band shirts. Like I still
Rockabilia catalogs.
and rock, yeah, yeah, that too. Yeah, that. Oh, dude, I love
Like
that.
15.
Like,
I love just looking through them, and I'd find like new bands to check out and stuff.
oh yeah, totally. No, and like we would like leave we would like leave school, like we would just like ditch a class and like go to the FYE and like just blind buy a CD from the like cheap CD section. We found some great stuff that way. Like we found Winter Sun that way, I remember. And like
Oh, cool.
I still like think that first Winter Sun album is like pretty sick. Like it's like I feel like that was like a huge gateway for me to get into black metal was through that record. Found a lot of stuff that I would be embarrassed to say out loud now, but you know, had a good time with it as a high schooler.
I appreciate the honesty, dude. I like it when you know, real metal people, right? But they you know, they're honest with the gateway bands that got them there. Like I find that endearing personally.
I mean,
it's different for every generation, you know.
It totally is. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of my cringy gateway bands, like I remember like Veil of Maya was a band where I was like, this is so sick. And I still am grateful to that band because they turned me on to Cynic, because they got their name from the Cynic song. And so because of them, I got into Cynic, and Cynic is like, that's like one of my like god bands.
Oh,
like
dude,
I
Focus
love that band.
Traced in Air.
Oh, Focus and Traced in Air, dude. So good. Yeah. They're absolutely a favorite band. And like Human by Death, like, are you kidding? Like it's so sick. So yeah, like that was a gateway band. And like, there's like Black Dahlia Murder, of course. Everybody, they were a staple. You had to hear it, and it was sick. Like, I still think Miasma is like, that record goes hard.
100%.
Um but yeah, so yeah, music's just always kind of been there, and like metal in particular, it was just kind of this like, it was always like, once it hit, it just hit. And like, I remember it was like really, I think, like, I remember when it felt like it was solidified was the year that my parents, I think it was like my 16th or 17th birthday, my parents got me tickets to go see the Slayer, Megadeth, and Anthrax tour, and also like a Scorpions show as like a birthday present. I didn't even know these shows were coming to town. My mom had like done the research and found these shows were coming up. And I was just shocked. I never thought my parents would like accept that like I like this type of music. It always was kind of this like, it seemed like a little bit of a thorn in their side. And so that was, yeah, that was like the moment for me where I was like, oh, okay, this is like, I'm allowed to like this now. Like, I'm finally like of age to where like this is no longer like a problem for them.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I had a very similar relationship with my parents with it too. Because like I did well in school and stuff, and mostly stayed out of trouble. But I was very interested in metal, and then when I was younger, I mean, they would be very like careful with what I was able to buy or whatever. But then it just eventually they just kind of give up.
You just get,
And then I'm talking like
exactly,
middle
yeah.
school. Once I was in high school, they were pretty hands off.
Yeah.
The like really satanic stuff, they were still freaked out by.
Yeah, same. I mean,
Like I
kind of
wasn't
was too,
showing
to
like
be
Cannibal
honest.
Corpse to them, but
Yeah.
like Cradle Filth, because that's my generation, right? So like
Yeah.
Cradle
Yeah.
Filth, like
For
that was a
sure.
big band. But they would not be happy with me like
Oh yeah.
buying
Yeah.
that
No,
stuff.
there was, yeah, even my mom like buying me a ticket to Slayer felt like it was like, this is kind of edgy right now for her, but
Yeah.
like, I'll take it. I was so stoked, dude. That show was so sick. Oh my God.
What year roughly was that then?
Oh my God. That would have been, I think I was I think it was probably 2009, 2010.
Mm.
Yeah. I was like either a junior or senior in high school when that came through. And yeah, like that was like a life change. I remember Chris Broderick was playing guitar for Megadeth at the time, and they played all of Rust in Peace front to back. And then Slayer played all of Seasons in the Abyss front to back. Like, it was so sick. It sucked that we didn't get to see all of Slayer's set because it was like a school night. So we had to go home early. Like, I remember my buddy just being like, dude, are you pretty tired? I'm pretty tired. Like, we ditched out before we got to see Raining Blood, which was a shame, but it was still, I'm just glad I saw that show.
I saw I think it was like the 2008 Gigantour.
Dude,
like the
was
first
that was like
big.
Bodum on that one?
Yeah, and Job for
Dude,
Cowboy
yeah.
was the opener, and
Yep.
that was right when like the deathcore stuff like hit the high
Dude,
schools.
and
Like that's when
that first Job for a Cowboy EP was like pretty sick, dude. Like, I remember like that getting
like the
passed around
first
my friend
memes
group.
for metal.
Yeah, it was. Yes,
It's a
it was, dude.
pivotal
Yeah. Yeah, it
historical
really was,
moment.
dude. It really was. And now somehow they're back. I have so many people telling me like, dude, check out the new Job for a Cowboy. I'm like,
Oh, it is
what
good.
year is it? Is it
It's
good?
actually good. Yeah, yeah.
Dude, I keep hearing that. I'll check it out. That's so funny to me. I'm just like, that.
But did you
that
like
band?
Sun Eater or like the last kind of things, like the direction they were going?
I haven't
Like,
listened to anything since the like, I think the first album, like the first full length. Like, we really just had the Doom EP that was like,
okay,
just went so hard. And then we had like the first CD. I remember the first CD just kind of being like, this isn't super memorable to me.
yeah,
I
I'd agree.
really, yeah, I cling to like melody in metal too. So like, I was really, at that point, I was just like listening to tons of Black Dahlia, tons of like Arsis. Like, I loved like Ryan Knight's guitar playing on that one Arsis record. Yeah, tons of like more like melodic death metal type stuff at that point in my life, that I really was enjoying, and like really progressive stuff too. Like, I was big on like Protest the Hero back in the day. Like,
Yeah,
that was a band that
Fortress.
I like learned all of Fortress. Yeah, I learned all of Fortress on bass front to back. Like, that was like the band that taught me guitar, kind of. Like, I owe a lot to that band, even though I don't really listen to them anymore. But yeah, they were so
I'm not
sick.
gonna lie, I can't stand it now. It's weird. There's some
I
bands
feel like I couldn't either. Yeah.
Oh, I actually really don't like it. I liked it then, but some of the stuff that's like that really, there was like a what's the word I'm trying to even come up with, but there's like a lot of quirky music from the 2010s that like I really can't listen to much now anymore.
Oh
And
yeah.
like System of a Down, like I was the same way when I was growing up. I liked them a lot. I can't stand them now.
Dude, I
I
will say
really don't like them.
I put on Steal This Album recently and it held up for me. I was loving it, dude. I was just doing the dishes to Steal This Album. I was like, dude, there's some riffs on this actually, but I do feel like there was kind of a jovial nature. There was like this like lack of taking it seriously that I think was really refreshing for the early 2000s, but I think now we're going fully the opposite direction and bands are taking themselves way too seriously again. I mean,
And I
you
don't
do have,
like that either.
I don't either. I feel like I kind of fall into that camp though myself, like with the way I treat my own music, where it is just like, I get why people fall into that trapping, but I think it is important to like zoom out. Like me and Doug from Scarcity were talking about this a while back. I was kind of talking about some of the things I'd like to do with my own lyrics. He was like, dude, you can't do that. I'm like, why not? He's like, because you're singing it in a goblin voice. Like you can't do that, you know? And I still tried. I think I came pretty close. Like I feel pretty good about it on my last record, but as far as like the lyrics go, but yeah, I think like I think I don't know though. There is like this like whole new metal revival happening with like the Gen Z kids. That's really interesting to see. So I
Yeah.
really just don't.
Whatever
I don't
keeps
know
the
what.
genre alive, man. That's all.
Truly, yeah. Like it's cool to see it, but it's also hard not to get cynical after a while. You know, it's like
Yeah.
you see stuff and it's like, man, like you start to be a boomer about it. You know, it's like respect your elders kind of stuff. You know.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I got a feeling that at least compared to some more metal elitist types, we're pretty like you kids
Yeah.
do your thing, you know.
I try to be, yeah, same, you know, the more the merrier, you know, like anybody who's going to like help keep a band on tour is like, they're good in my book, you know. Buy a t-shirt, buy a record. Hell yeah. You know, you do you, not my business.
Exactly. Well, you're hinting at a little bit. You mind talking a little bit about Moray and like kind of what led you to start, writing
Yeah.
some music and the project and just kind of
Yeah. Yeah. So I have the tape right here. That's my solo project. I mean, I've had to hire, drummers for that, for help with that part. Cause I don't have the dexterity or the stamina for drums, but, yeah, like I said, I learned guitar. After I kind of feel like I don't know how to say it without sounding, pretentious or something, but I feel like I kind of got what I wanted out of bass and kind of was like, I need to move on and start playing guitar because I feel like I'm kind of like, I'm getting just so in the weeds with bass guitar and like, it's getting kind of noodly and like, what I'm trying to do is play guitar now. So let's just play guitar,
right.
I was very, committed to fingerstyle. I really liked the tactile nature of like playing your bass. And so it was really hard for me to pick up a plectrum. Having a pick was really difficult for me. But yeah, I just kind of was noodling around with guitar for a long time. And I would always just do this thing. And like my high school friends and I would do it. And then it kind of continued after high school where we would just kind of come up with fake song names, fake band names. And I started just like for fun in my free time, I would like make fake J cards for these fake bands. And I'd, put together art, put together a logo and just like make little, make fake tapes. And they just were really fun for me. And then kind of as I was going through that, I was kind of like, well, why don't I actually just make music to put on the tapes? And why don't I actually just make this project? The name Moray came later though. That was kind of a deep cut. I was really going through my being angry at living in Utah and being surrounded by Mormons phase at that point. And so there's a piece in one of the Mormon scriptures that's like kind of a deep cut, but they talk about how Satan has domain over the waters. There's weird kind of folklore in Mormonism about that, where Mormons who are about to go on their missions will not go swimming because Lucifer owns the water. He'll drown you before your mission, stuff like that. It's weird superstition.
Okay.
And so I was angry 19-year-old. I was just dude, what's more satanic than a sea snake? Hell yeah, So I called the project Moray after that, and my buddy Steven did the logo, and I loved how the logo looked. So I haven't changed the name, even though I don't feel married to the name by any means at this point. And if you look on Spotify, there's like 3 other Morays who are bigger than me, but it was just, it was fun to, I feel like I got a lot of my like anger out through that first project. I was like 19 to, I think I finally released when I was like 23, I want to say, but I had been writing that material from the time I was like 19 or 20. And so I did that whole thing, played some live shows a little bit, and then band kind of fell apart. So I was kind of just sitting on a lot of riffs for a long time. Like I had most of an album written in about 2019 when the band kind of fell apart. And my buddy Randy, who helps me with mixing and mastering, I mean, he's basically like the unofficial, 4th member of the band at this point, or really the true second member of the band, I should almost say, because he's so instrumental with helping me with recording and mixing, mastering everything. I could not do it on my own without his help. But he recommended, he's like, dude, just write the album, program some drums, or find a drummer to like find a session guy to play on it, and then like figure out live stuff later on if you really want that, And so I was really like on the fence about even keeping the project going. I had a kind of crazy experience actually in like I want to say it was 2020 or 2021. Yeah, it was 2021. I was walking on the street one day, and my girlfriend calls me a raven. I pick up clutter. I pick stuff up all the time. I can't. It's like I always have. When I was like 6 years old, I would pick up trash off the ground and build little sculptures out of it, like glue stuff together. Like I've just always kind of been the creepy kid from Hereditary or something. Like, just really for whatever reason, like I will be like across the street and see something and be like, I want to go pick up that trash right over there. Like, give me a second, and I will like. I will, like, it's bad. It's weird. I mean, the shelves behind me are just, it's bad. It's bad. But, so we're walking down the street. We're just like going to go get dinner one day. Mind you, like the night before, I was like looking at Reverb to see how much money I could make if I sold all my gear. Like I was really like done with the band. I was like, man, I need to just sell my stuff. Next day we're walking down the street and I find a pin on the ground, like just like a regular, 1-inch little pin. And I pick it up and it's a pin of my band. Like my logo, and I haven't had these pins in like 4 or 5 years. I like find this in the gutter. It's like smashed. It's been run over by cars. I'm just like, what are the odds of this? This is crazy. And it's just like sent a chill down my spine. I'm like, what does this mean? Literally the next day I ended up finding Robin Stone, who ended up playing drums on the record. We found each other on Instagram, and he has a background in illustration actually. So he was very quick to, follow back and be like, dude, I like your art. I'm like, dude, I like your drumming. What are your rates like for session work? And he just hopped on it immediately. And I'm glad I did, because he's gotten his workflow has gotten so much more busy. Like he's just constantly booked now. So I feel like I got really lucky.
Metal or?
Yeah, he's a metal drummer. Yeah, he's fantastic. He was in this band, The Amenta, for a long time. He just did a tour with Psychroptic. Like he's a crazy good drummer.
Yeah. No,
yeah, he's really good. And honestly, I was really grateful to work with him too, because it forced me to get better at guitar. Like I thought I was good at guitar. I was not good at guitar. Like I could not keep up. But yeah, so he did some drums for me, and yeah, put out the album last year. Actually, the whole time I was in Georgia last year, I was visiting my mom out there, and she's in Statesboro. There's nothing to do out there. So I was just in her little guest room. She had a desk in there, and I was just working on the album cover. I can show it to you here.
Yeah. Let me make you larger too.
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger.
Oh yeah. And that's in the slide deck we're going to cover. Dude, I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I was really proud of it. And like, it felt like a really natural kind of, follow up to the cover that I had used on the previous record, which was that gateway piece that is in the slides as well. I'll point that out when we get to it, but yeah, I just wanted something that really felt like it kind of pulled the viewer in a cool way. So yeah, really proud of that piece. For me personally, it's probably my favorite drawing I've done to date. I can think of a couple that come close, but that one, just like, because it's my record cover, it's really special to me. It also it got like an honorable mention at like the local museum too, in their like little spring salon show, which was really like super, super touching to see. Like really was super validating.
I like the shape of it, man. I might be
Yeah,
interested in like in you. I don't want to project. You do whatever you want to do, but like maybe taking that concept of like different like cutout shapes and then packing cool details inside them. You know?
I really have been looking at that. I actually was literally talking to a friend about this yesterday, about that idea, because I do feel like I need to move away from rectangular compositions. Like I'm so used to just like I have a paper or a screen I'm looking at. There's always a rectangle building my composition into it. And I have this friend. His name is Craig. He's Bird Boat Universe on Instagram. Highly recommend checking him out. Like he's fantastic. He's doing the tattoo thing now, but his illustrations are amazing. He does a lot of like really like ornate. They kind of look like they kind of look a little bit like triptychs, like Catholic like triptychs.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with like the nice ornate like tops and stuff. But he just packs them with all this beautiful nature detail. A lot of like cool storytelling. Like they're just really fascinating pieces. And I was just talking to him about how I'm like, dude, I want to move in that direction. Like I don't know if I don't know how well I'll be able to, but I just know that like I like a shirt where it's not just a square on a shirt. And so many of the shirts I've designed are that way because I'm just drawing and I'm just like, this is what my drawings look like, throw it on a shirt, boom, boom, you're done, you know? But I like his shirts are very thoughtful and very like well composed in this way where it's just kind of this free floating image. And yeah, I think this was, especially with how the shirts came out of that image too, like it really, it really did open it up for me. I appreciate you saying that actually, because that is totally a direction I want to go in.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think you'll kill it. Looking at my list of questions, trying to think of what would stick out for the next topic. I guess the style that you are mostly known for now, when did you start that path, or does it just feel like you've always been on that path and this is just where you're at now? Like, does it feel like there was an intentional shift at all?
There was a shift. There was a shift, for sure. Yeah. When I was like 21, so I went to art school for a little bit. I did an illustration program at the local university. My dad taught there. So I had free tuition, which was really sick. I do, for a long time, I felt really mad at myself for dropping out, but I was turning down commission work to do homework, which felt silly. So I was kind of like, okay, like maybe I should just get started on this thing. But while I was there, my style was very different. I was really in kind of this, I mean, if I'm being honest, I was lazy. I was doing this kind of indie comics look. A lot of that style was really trending at the time. And there was, I could see that there was work doing that style. So I was kind of like, okay, like this, like kind of cartoony, looser, I did still have a very, like, it was a definitive style. Like it looked very much like it was like, I don't see people doing what I'm doing, but I'm pulling from different places, but this still feels like me, but it was a much lazier version of what I do now, like much lazier. And, actually I have the piece here. I'll grab it.
So this is like 21.
Yes. So this was a piece when I was 20. I had just turned 21 when I did this. Sorry about the reflection there.
That looks
I don't know how well you can see it with the glass, but these two kind of skeleton knights.
Yeah.
But so that piece was one that I did literally like the week I was turning 21. I started it, and that's why I was holding the hourglass. Was I was just like being an edgy 21-year-old, like, oh, dying, it's my birthday, I'm gonna die soon. Like, but so I started that drawing, and it was just going to be the skeleton standing there. I was going to cut the paper and have it just be a little rectangle. But as I was drawing it, it just kind of kept growing into this other, skeleton next to it. And I carried that piece around with me for like a month. Like I really took my time with it in a way that I never had let myself prior. Like I was usually really impatient. I would get to a certain point in a drawing and just like, whatever, I'm done with this. But that one was like very much like, I was like, I want to do something that feels very medieval. Like prior to that, I had not really been like, there was always a medieval influence, but like, I definitely was very much kind of just in a kind of fantasy world with a lot of art stuff. And so, yeah, that piece was a very deliberate, like turn into that style. And that just led to a lot of a lot of new kind of discoveries in like how I can make marks and how I can use pens. And yeah, I got a lot out of it, even though I'm not crazy about the piece these days. People still buy prints of it sometimes, which is crazy to me. But um, yeah, so that was kind of where the style that I'm in now kind of started. I think it was kind of, it felt like a natural progression from the comic book thing I was kind of doing prior, where I was really interested in comic books, and I was interested to see ways that the comic book style had evolved from the limitations of printmaking. Like you have like Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko doing this thing that was like very much a product of like this is the technology we have, you know? And then that slowly evolves into like you're like Jim Lee's and Greg Capullo's doing this like highly rendered cross hatching, really stylized thing that I was like totally into in high school. And that to me, like when I kind of put together the pieces of like that cross hatching is doing basically the same thing that Albrecht Dürer was doing with his cross hatching. Like these are both like these two schools of thought are doing the same task. And that was just kind of when it collapsed in on itself in a way that was really exciting to me, where it was like, okay, like, like these two things are not mutually exclusive. Like this lowbrow comic book stuff actually has a storied past with this like much deeper, much more, you know, like highbrow thing. So yeah, that's definitely, that was like kind of when I hit that, kind of aesthetic. I don't know. How was that for you? Like,
Oh man, I still feel like I'm figuring out my style and my lane, you know, very much so. Cause up until starting the channel, I actually didn't really have a place to belong. And now I feel like I do, you know? So
right.
I
That's
feel
amazing.
like it's been pretty new in terms of even finding, because I didn't go to art school, kind of
Yeah,
learned like in a silo in a sense, not completely. I don't want to be dramatic. Just like I didn't have like peers. You know what I mean?
right.
So
Yeah,
like that's a big. It's helpful because you don't have other people to compare your work to, and you kind of just can develop on your own and develop your own style. But it also can be hindrance in the sense that you're kind of aimless. You know? So
totally feel that. Yeah, definitely in Provo, I feel that big time. Like,
yeah.
I feel like I didn't start showing my artwork like really, you know, I posted on Instagram kind of casually. But you know, I would also just, you know, post the regular Instagram stuff, you know, like weird selfie or like a cool sunset, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't really start taking it seriously until like 2018 or 2019 was when it was like, oh, like people want to see this from me, and you know, I like doing it anyway, so let's do it. And I feel like I didn't even know I could show my work in public, like in a frame in a gallery, until like yeah around that same time, uh, when yeah like I got hit up to be in a show at the Springville Museum, which is kind of just a cool little local museum, super historic, like really old building, beautiful, beautiful building. But when they hit me up, I was kind of like, what the heck, like. I didn't think that I had stuff that could go in like on a wall. Like they like prior to that, it just like sat in portfolios, you know, like do a drawing, scan it, throw it up on the internet. That's it, you know? Um, but yeah,
I
I
feel
think,
like for me and you, we still got a lot of like not ways to go. I don't mean this in a sense of
oh no,
skill. I
I
just mean like in
absolutely
terms of
agree.
like
No,
our journey, because in the
totally.
grand scheme of it, we're both pretty young artists.
Oh
Most
yeah,
artists
no,
don't hit their
we're,
like peak until like late 40s, 50s, you know?
I definitely agree with that. No, and that's something that's really, it's exciting when I remind myself that, because it is like,
Yeah.
there are times where I am kind of like, well, I've already done like way more than I ever thought I would with this. So like, what else is there, you know? But that happens all the time for me. So, um, yeah, I think, I think it's important to remember, like, yeah, it's always relative to kind of where you're at, like both physically and kind of in the process. And I love that you're doing this channel too, because of the way that is like fostering a community where like previously there kind of was one, but it was never really, it never really went beyond like, who, who you see on Instagram, or like who you see, like what albums art you see floating around. It was like very, it didn't feel as defined as it does now, with like seeing the way your channel's growing right now. It's really exciting. And I think like, I love that it's like, it's a resource too. Like there's a lot of good information for like young artists and, potentially bands if they're interested in this side of things. Like I think a lot of musicians don't consider the visual side of their project as much as I kind of wish they did. And so I love that this is like, there's a place where people are deliberately talking about that, and not just the, vague, there's plenty of art podcasts that just feel, pretty general. So it's nice to get something that's hyper niche and see that the niche is actually, cultivating a sense of community. It's really, really cool. I love what you're doing, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Very grateful for that. Let's see. Shit, I had a question on the top of my head, but I can't think about it now. Fuck. It's actually bugging me. Yeah, I don't know what I was gonna say.
Is there anything in the questions from they had written up?
Let's see. Oh, I recall. Like, so in terms of working with bands, then what was kind of maybe the first bigger band that got you a little more recognition?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I've had a very like non-traditional experience with that, or maybe it is, and I just like, you don't see how kind of slow it is until it suddenly does hit. But I mean, so like in high school, I had worked with local bands plenty, gotten burnt plenty too by local bands, and just really like I was pretty like I was pretty jaded about working with bands because of the experience I'd had with some of the local bands I'd worked with, where I was just kind of like, man, like I don't know if this is the vibe. But I think I'm trying to think, like the one that really hit was around like 2020, or like maybe it was end of 2019. I think it was 2020 though, when Dan Barrett from Have a Nice Life hit me up to license a drawing for the Blackwing record he was putting out, which I love that project. It's a fantastic project, really cool, like kind of electronic.
Yeah, Have a Nice Life, kinda, man. That's like a legendary.
Oh yeah, Have a Nice Life is legendary. Yeah, but I don't know if you've heard Blackwing, but it's like his side project. It's great. I really like it. Super catchy. It's a little bit more uplifting too, which I like about it. Like I was like, it's a little more posy, which I kind of needed at the time too. So it was a blessing that he kind of was taking that direction. But he and I had gotten in touch actually while I was working on the two skeletons drawing that I showed. He had made a tweet. This was like, 2014 or 2015. No, this would have been almost like 2013, 2014. He made a tweet just like asking for, artists, for his label to do a shirt for Enemies List, which was the label he was running at the time. And I shot him, I shot him a message and was like, hey, I'm definitely interested in this. And he got back to me and was like, oh yeah, I already got somebody, sorry. And so, here 5 or 6 years later, having him, hit me up was just like, whoa, what the heck? And that really was a big, like, that was a wind in my sails big time. Like this record, it got put out by the Flenser, which was really sick too. Cause like, that's a label like I loved since, I was, early in my college years, was obsessed with that label, with Bostanage and, like Mammalik and all these really cool experimental kind of black metal projects. But then kind of after that, because that was such a one-off, like it's rare for me to like get hit up by people, like at least at the time it was. So that was kind of like, whoa, that's weird. Then in 2020, I got in touch with Deafheaven randomly. George had been following me on Instagram, and I saw that they had posted about how their tour with Inter Arma had just gotten canceled. And
COVID.
Yeah, it was literally like the week of COVID, and I think Salt Lake was like the second date on that tour too. I was really excited to go catch that show because they were playing a bunch of old material. It was like their 10-year anniversary show. They were like reviving a bunch of old songs. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see this. And
for Sunbather or Rose of Judah?
It was the demo actually. They were playing stuff from the demo, which I was like, oh my gosh, I want to see that. But so that got canceled, and I saw they posted about how they're like we're like working to put out this like 10-year anniversary like live album. We're gonna do like a live recording thing. We don't have like anything lined up. We don't have album cover, anything. So I was just like shot him a message. I'm like, hey, like, you looking for album art? Like, thinking like there's no shot. And he got back to me like, let's do a project at some point. Like I think we're just gonna use a photo for this one, but like I'll be in touch. And then 2020 we did a project together, and then like right after that project, which that material hasn't been seen yet, but like literally like while I was working on that project, actually I got hit up by Pallbearer's manager Simon, and he was just like, hey, like Pallbearer's just like doing a merch drop, trying to make some COVID money, looking for a shirt design. And that was like also like what is happening? Like it was just like this, like it just felt insane. And so I did the hermit drawing for them, which is like another one of my like maybe favorite drawings I've done, where it just everything came together. It was one that I'd had the idea like probably 2 or 3 years prior and had just been sitting on it forever. And the reference photos that they sent of like my portfolio of the pieces that they liked, it lined up where I was like, oh dude, I finally get to do this drawing. This is perfect. So that was huge. And then like, yeah, shortly after that got in touch with, Mike from Inter Arma hit me up and we did a shirt for them. And yeah, it's just kind of like the ball has kind of rolled since then. There's always these like really intense times of like, I'm working with all these bands I love, and then it'll just be dead for months of just like, nobody's hitting me up. Do I even still draw? I don't even know what I'm doing with my life. It's like, You'll just have these moments of like, what the hell? Which I'm kind of coming out of one of those right now, which is a weird rusty feeling, but I'm trying to shed
got two covers on the Bandcamp feed. You got Scarcity and you got Pelican. So I see both of them on a daily basis.
That was huge. That was crazy. And I think because of the nature of working with a band, like you'll finish something and you'll wait 5 or 6 months before you get to put on, like with a good schedule, you'll wait 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, it could be.
And so so for me, it's like I finished the Scarcity drawing in November, I want to say, and the Pelican drawing in December. And since then, I've just been like doing sketchbook stuff. Like I'm starting some new jobs right now that I'm excited about. But yeah, I'm feeling dusty. I'm feeling rusty. Like I gotta brush out the cobwebs. But
well, this interview will kick your ass into gear, right?
It is. No, and like honestly, like even just listening to this podcast, really, it does. Like when I'm like I haven't been feeling great about drawing, I'll listen to this podcast, whoever it is. There's always a nugget in there where I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to pick up my pen now. Oh my gosh, where's my sketchbook? And something comes out of it every time. So yeah, I always been grateful for it, for sure.
Well, thanks, man. You're buttering me up. Here, I got one more question for you before we start pulling up the art. Unless there's anything in the just so you guys are aware, I'll break the fourth wall for the audience. I usually send over a list of questions to the guests. I just find it helpful to like just know what's good to talk about. So my question for you, this is hard because we all love so many different artists, right?
Right.
But just because we love a particular artist doesn't mean that they're like somebody who like resonates with us so deeply that it's like had an impact on our style. So what's like your Mount Rushmore or like 4 artists you think have like had a very big impact? I love
that question. I really like that question. That one was hard for me. I think I've narrowed it down. I wrote them down because I was like, that's a sick question. The first one for me is probably Remedios Vero. Do you know her work?
No. You're giving me a lot of homework, man.
Dude, she's fantastic. You will love her work. She is a Mexican surrealist painter. Does like these really cool, very textured and very like layered with symbolism. These like beautiful paintings. They're usually pretty small. They're not terribly large, but they're very illustrative. But they're also just like there's a lot of like depth to them. And I think for me with her work, the thing that I come back to is just like that blurring the boundary between what is illustration, what is fine art. Like I don't like that there is this wall there. I think that's so silly that people have put that there. And I think her work is so emblematic of like you can have both. Like you can have like a symbolist painter who like is doing stuff, in the tradition of like a Magritte or something like that, but then it's also very illustrative and very whimsical and fun to look at. Like it's not boring. It's not like, not that Magritte's great. I shouldn't say boring, but like it doesn't feel like it's like mired in this like weight of symbolism. It's like playful in this way where it's like she's processing her inner world through these symbols. It's really, really wonderful stuff. I absolutely love Remedios Varo. She was friends for a long time with Leonora Carrington, who's they were contemporaries. Their work is very similar. I don't know if you're familiar with her. I think she's also very much in the same school, but for me, Vero is like, she's up there. Two would probably be, Clifford Still, if you know his work. Dude, Clifford Still.
A lot of the people in like that did you learn about some of these people in art school, or you're just such a nerd?
I'm just Googling constantly, dude. I see a cool JPEG and I reverse Google search that and I like go down rabbit like you should. My tabs are fucked, dude. Like I have so many tabs open at any given time, like 200 or 300 tabs, and I will go back to close them and I will start researching again. Like it's bad. No, I'm a nerd about this stuff. I did learn a bit in the school, but I didn't get to take as much art history as I would have liked. So those two, okay. I would say probably, Clifford Still, he's a abstract expressionist painter. He was like contemporaries with Mark Rothko.
I know Rothko.
Yeah. So they were buddies for a long time. Rothko actually like convinced Clifford Still to move from California to New York, which really dramatically changed Still's painting style. But then they kind of had a falling out. Clifford Still was kind of notoriously an asshole. Like he was not super agreeable. He was kind of brutal, but his paintings there's just like this like fire to them that feels like I love Rothko so much too. Like they're both like up there for me, but like Rothko is like he's breathing on the canvas, and Clifford Still feels like he's like lighting it on fire. Like it just is so like it's really intense, but it still has that same like quiet contemplative feeling of like good abstract expressionist painting. He's awesome. There's a whole museum of his work. When he died, he left his widow with all of his paintings and was just like, I don't want these going anywhere other than their own museum. And so she just had barns full of a barn full of these paintings, like just gathering dust. And all of these cities found out about this. And so all these different cities in America were like trying to petition her, like, let us have a Clifford Still museum. Let us have this museum. And finally, for whatever reason, Denver, the mayor of Denver, Colorado, was just like really nice to old ladies. And like, she really liked him. And she was like, okay, we'll do Denver. And so they're out in Denver. There's a museum of all his work. I haven't been yet. I really want to go, but yeah, his
far
work
for
is
you, right?
No, it's like probably 6-hour drive. Like I gotta just make a trip out there to go see it. But yeah, gas is expensive, and I like my routine, so I don't like to leave much. But and then another one is the musician Phil Elverum. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Who?
Phil Elverum. The microphones in Mount Erie. He's like Titan for me. Like absolutely love his work. He does a lot of photography that I really, really love. And his lyrics and his music is just like, he's just a fount, like he is so much. I'm wearing my bootleg Mount Erie shirt right now. Like I love him. Like he's so good.
I love that microphone record, the Glow. Right.
Oh yeah. The Glow Part 2 is fantastic. Also, like in Microphones in 2020, the one that he put out recently is highly recommend that. It's like this beautiful single. It's one song, 45 minutes long, autobiographical, 2 chords. It's beautiful. It's really good. Like maybe one of my favorite albums of the last 5 years. He hasn't released anything I don't like. Like he's just really been super influential. And yeah, he's done a bunch of books of photography that are really, really beautiful and super inspiring to me as well. And like I feel like I can credit most of my recent like kind of lyrical approach to seeing the way he talks about his workflow, and like how he interacts with ideas. Like I think that's been a huge influence on me.
So like it's a
Is
good
that
example too of where you're talking about the music and visual art. Really, there's not as much a divide. You got
exactly?
20.
Yeah, yeah. He's just fully like he's doing both in a really tangible way, and yeah, he draws too. Like he does a. I think he did the cover for. He has an album by the Microphones called Mount Deary that came out right before he changed the name of Microphones into being Mount Deary. And yeah, he just like the way he interacts with those ideas. That cover is really cool too. Like cool, like brushy pen and ink stuff. But yeah, just the way he like takes ideas and kind of like pulls like threads these lines between them is just it's really fun to interact with, and like I always get something out of his work. So yeah, he's my obligatory music hero in that Mount Rushmore. And above that, I'd put like just nature, just like Mother Nature in general, you know.
Yeah, the mountain itself.
Yeah,
Get
the
real
actual
meta
yeah, like
about it.
just like seeing a good rock is like that's my favorite art. Like
All right, so that's your 4 then.
that's my 4. Yeah, that's my
Okay.
4.5 or 5. Yeah.
I like that, man. See that I need to ask that question more often because I think it's so fascinating. Everybody's like, I love how just about everybody I talk with, we're all like, yes, that art is good, that art is good, that art is good. But like when the thing really hits you,
Oh
like
yeah,
that's
there's
what I'm
nothing like
fascinated
it.
with because it's all about like that unique voice and taste that I find so
100%.
fascinating.
Yeah,
Because my
100%.
my taste or like the thing that gets me really excited is very different than those things. And that's very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what are yours? Do you know?
I'll give you one that I don't talk about that often that is not in the metal scene at all, but it was highly influential for me, and that is Robert Williams. So the guy
Okay.
who founded Juxtaposed magazine.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of Robert Williams pieces.
I'm gonna give him a Google right now because I feel like I know the name. I think I was looking at him recently, actually. What kind of stuff does he do?
Man, it's hard to
Oh
describe.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
No, I've
it's
seen this stuff. Yeah.
lowbrow. It has a little bit of that, uh, like the big Ed Roth kind of stuff with like the monster truck
Yeah.
stuff. But like what I love about Robert Williams is like he is highly skilled, highly trained, and he breaks like the wall of like perspective and composition, and it's like a comic book panel painted on a canvas. And when I first saw it in college, it just like shook me because I was like, wow, you can make these psychedelic stories that like convey an actual story. And like he's an illustrator who meets that fine art thing like you're
Mhm.
talking about.
Totally. Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
that my favorite artists are illustrators like that. I have no bones about it. Like that's very much like the stuff that just intrigues me. But Robert Williams takes it to a whole nother level. So he captures insane
Yeah.
technique, not taking himself too seriously and like having some fun with it. And there's like humor and then psychedelia and also showing like the darkness of life or like, people making like there's tragedy to it. So
Mhm.
it captures all these things that I'm inherently very interested in. So Robert Williams, especially in terms of composition and just like
Yeah. I
not
see it
having
as soon as I pull him up. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Lee all over it. Like for sure, it's really cool stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, and like you're saying, like the way he's using the flatness of like a canvas, but then he's still like so skilled that he can just like play. That's very satisfying to see.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm
like
definitely gonna
him
have to do
for
a deep dive on
sure.
him.
Uh, Beyond that, it's kind of hard. Like he's like somebody who I kind of always come back to, but I really like Bernie Wrightson,
Oh, I
Giger,
see Bernie Wrightson in your stuff. Yeah, he's all over your stuff.
Giger,
Eager for sure. Yeah.
Frazetta, of course.
Oh yeah,
Really, I
Frazetta's
just need
a
to look
must.
back here, and then I would
Yeah.
put Japanese and tattoo art is very influential.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard you talk a little bit. Like, I love like Yuki like prints are so sick.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
I don't know,
yeah,
man.
I think
It's hard to nail it down, but somebody I
no,
really
I
like
feel glad.
is
I
like
feel glad
Wayne
that you gave
Barlow.
me a. Oh, Wayne Bar. Oh yeah, he's
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Wayne Barlow. Yeah, his
Ian
stuff's so
Miller.
sick. Oh, dude, Ian Miller, he almost made my list. He was close, but
Yeah.
I felt like I was like, I want to go with like the more left field stuff. Like, I feel like that's expected. It's like you see somebody who draws an ink, it's like, of course they love Ian Miller, you know?
Well, it's like almost every metal artist loves email. That's why I
Oh,
like
dude.
mentioning Robert Williams, because I feel
Actually,
like
you saying
with
Robert
you,
Williams too. Yeah, like I see like the piece you just did of like the boar with like that helmet. That feels very like Robert Williams, Ian Miller. Like,
definitely. Yeah, I was. There's no. I was like, I'm gonna do Ian Miller idea, but my own rendering and painting
oh,
style.
of course. Yeah, no, I
That's
could
what
I
I
could
was
see
like
the
thinking of
influence
that.
though. I loved that piece. That was very sick. Yeah. Yeah, sorry to cut you off there.
I was just saying, like, I think it's important for anybody who wants to get into like metal art. Find your like. It doesn't even have to be a lot. Find like 4 or 5 artists who have nothing to do with metal and draw
Mhm.
from those, and then understand the common shared language that everybody else operates in and inject that into it. You know what I mean? It's like
Yes.
you see a lot
Yes.
of metal artists who like draw from like medieval stuff and like Durr and stuff like that.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't want to draw from that at all. I want to draw from 70s psychedelia. And that's
Oh
where I
yeah.
want to like
I love that.
that's
When
what
I
I
think
want to try
like
to bring to the table, you know?
I've always felt like the idea of like trying to cater to like the genre you're working in is kind of silly because to me it's like the thing becomes the thing because you put those things next to each other. You know, it's like
Exactly.
you don't, you know, it's like, oh, I can't do this metal art if there's not a skeleton on it. It's like, well, who says? Like literally like something like actually with my record that I just came out with last summer, um one of the back and forths that me and my buddy Randy, who's producing it with me, we kept going back and forth on was we had these beautiful interlude tracks by my buddy Ben Swisher, who's a fantastic musician, and he's more in kind of the alternate kind of indie rock type world. Like he's we're both like big, you know, Microphones Mount Deary fans, but also he turns me on to so much cool music.
Oh, dude,
Um,
I'm sorry. Remind me later. I got a music recommendation for you. Continue.
oh yes, I need to hear it. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so Ben had these beautiful interludes on the record. These like one is like a banjo's track, and one is this like pump organ with like recorder going underneath it. It's like really surreal and kind of it feels like I was inspired to use them because of Yellow Eyes in particular. Like that band is they're great friends and probably some of my favorite black metal. Um,
Great.
but the way that they go about juxtaposing like something that feels so organic with like this like black metal sound is just so exciting to me. So I was like, dude, I want to do that. But I also know that like I personally like when a record is like uh kind of divided up into the tracks instead of like, you know, merging it all into an experience, which I love that too. But like I knew like for my first record, I want to keep things real, you know, I don't want the potatoes to touch the peas too much, you know, like I want people to be able to like go through the tracks and like hear like here's this cool metal song and also here's this cool interlude, and like if that cool interlude wants to end up on somebody's ambient Spotify playlist, I think it should be able to do that, and they shouldn't have to listen to an abrasive black metal song to get to it, you know.
Yeah.
um
Point.
I think going forward I'm going to try to explore more with letting the potatoes and the peas touch, you know, but for this first record it felt like something I really wanted to do. But this is all to say that one of the back and forths we had was like Randy was kind of concerned about like your riffs and Robin's drumming feel so metallic, and these tracks from Ben feel like this like nice wooden floor, and you have like this concrete floor over here. How do you put those together? And the thing me and Ben just kept coming back to was like, well, they go together because we say they do. You know, like these ideas just they go together because they feel like we want them to, and we want to see what happens when you put them next to each other. And I think a lot of good art comes from that place. Sometimes you make a peanut butter tuna sandwich that way. Like sometimes you get, you know, it doesn't always hit, but like when I think it does, it really does. And I think for the sake of that album, like I, I personally feel like it worked. I have had a friend say otherwise. I've had some friends be like, "Man, I don't know about this banjo thing," but I'm like, I don't care. Like it's there, you know. Like it's a non-negotiable for me. Um, but yeah, and I agree. Like I think I wish that I saw the younger artists who I see getting into heavy art, but also just art in general. I wish that I saw people digging a little deeper and like not just like finding, being an encyclopedia of a bunch of cool artists, but like understanding why that art speaks to you, I think is really important. Like, I think like, because it's like, that's how you can like bring that feeling into your own work. It's like, I can't, I can't build a machine using a mechanism that somebody else already built if I don't understand how that mechanism works. So I think that's really, I think the why is as important as the like what for me.
Oh, well said, man. Well, let's transition to showing some of your work, and you can talk a little bit about the process, working with the bands, kind of wherever it leads.
Yeah.
All right. So first thing is I wanted to pull up the Pelican art. You mind talking a little bit about this process?
Yeah, I'm really proud of this drawing actually. I didn't have a ton of time on it, and they didn't, because it was a self-released project, so they didn't have a huge budget for it. So I kind of was I was kind of like, okay, what can I do within their budget that feels reasonable for my time and feels like it will still be an impactful image for them. And I had this reference, a friend had taken this photo, and it's really beautiful. I still want to, but I had originally saved it because I wanted to paint it. It was like just such a beautiful photograph, but I knew that I needed something fast. And I also, like I said kind of earlier in the episode, I've been thinking a lot about bringing more like high contrast areas into my work. I know, like I remember like Brittany Saprophile was talking about that on her episode as well, and I highly identified with that, where it's like I've done the, like, the little the kitten paws, barely touching your paper with your pen, like a lot of really mid-tone stuff, and it's like I want to start pushing my values. And so this is kind of the last drawing I did, and I feel like I really was able to do that and do it in, I feel like I kind of hit all of the marks I set for myself in a way that I'm pretty proud of. I actually have the tape right here. And
that's how they laid it out for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did the layouts as well. So I did everything for this. So nice. Here's the tape, and then the inner sleeve on the jacket is this little drawing here.
Awesome.
And have some details on the tape as well, some kind of mountain stuff. Yeah, kind of fun. And then I actually have the original drawing this is the original here. So
that's the original?
Yeah, this is the original for the inside jacket. The front cover is a 6x9 illustration, so it's a little bit bigger. It's
okay,
that big, but
still tiny.
So this one was originally done for there's a local gallery out here that does a business card art show every year. That's really fun. You get to enter like I think 10 drawings, and yeah, so I had some leftovers from that, and when they hit me up, I kind of just showed them what I had available that hadn't been licensed by anybody yet, and that was one that they kind of were gravitating towards, and that kind of gave me an idea, and I was kind of like, you know what, like, as much as I do like that drawing, I want to do something new for you guys. It's like it's freaking Pelican, right? Like, it's like, this is a Hydra headband. Like, I want to give them something special, so let's do something new, and we'll use that one for the inside, and we'll, we can use it. We used it as like a sleeve print on the shirt, just like kind of at the bottom of the wrist, which was really cool.
Oh, neat.
And I think they've used it in other capacities now as well. But yeah, so that's basically it. I feel really stoked about the contrast on this drawing, yeah, I hope that I can keep going in this direction, because I feel like I really hit a nice balance between high contrast, but there's still areas of, that kind of those midtones up at the top right there of the structure or of the mountain. And I'm also really, sorry, go on.
Well, it's just, what do you call, or how do you classify the repeated patterns that you juxtapose to like the nature scenes? Like what?
Yes. So
what do you call that?
Yeah, I've been calling it like concentric lines, or just concentrics. Like I don't really have like a name for it. A lot of people always say like it looks like a thumbprint or something, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But that kind of idea started. There's a slide later on, I'll point it out when we get to it, that kind of started it. But it kind of started just from this idea of more or less like, we talk about like Albrecht Dürer or like Doré or like old like steel engravers would have these. They would do these vertical or these horizontal lines across the sky as a way to kind of just build a basic value of,
Right.
not quite white. We don't want just the sky to be this white, stark white paper. And I was just thinking about that one time. I was like, well, what if, I mean, it may or may not have been inspired by chemicals in my body at the time, but I was, looking at the horizon of the mountain, was kind of imagining the way that it would like pulsate into the sky and what that would do for those concentric lines if the mountain were to like give off this electric shock, like what that would do to if these almost as if these lines were like strings across the sky. And that kind of started me.
Sober thought on a Tuesday, right?
Exactly. Well, it's a Thursday, but yeah. So it was kind of it kind of started there for me, and then from there, I just got really obsessed with the use of negative lines between thick black lines. Like I got really hyper fixated on that, the way that looked and the way that could build different values that are kind of like a third read in the drawing, if that makes sense. Like they're not necessarily the first thing you see, but it's like it brings something else than just like, oh, it's a mountain,
Yeah, totally.
And yeah, so it's been kind of a constant for the last like 5 years now or 6 years, where I do feel myself getting a little fatigued of it at times, especially after like one of my bigger drawings that I finished. I've been kind of wanting to play with other ideas, but for this piece, I was like, I need to do something that I feel confident about, that I can do quickly and will impact this piece in a really positive way. And so I tried doing an inverted version of the sky where the white lines were the black ones. So you had skinnier black lines and more white coming through. But the contrast of the darker lines just looked really nice. So we went with those, and they turned out, I'm really proud of them too. They're some of the smoother shaped lines I've been able to do, because I have to build those up very carefully, because I put one line down with usually a 0.005, sometimes a 0.1 micron, and then I go up next to that as close as I can with either a 0.3 or up to like a 0.8, depending on what the space I'm filling like is requiring. So I have a thin line and then a thicker line that builds off of it, and then I do that again, and I use that thin line to get as close to the previous line as possible, but without losing it. Like I want to keep some of that white space there. And that's something you see in like Franklin Booth's work a lot too. I really like his skies, so that was kind of an inspiration as well. But I definitely didn't want to just. I feel like we have a few artists right now working who are doing a way better Franklin Booth impression than I ever could. So I'm not really interested in doing that. I want it to feel like my own thing. Are you familiar with Booth at all?
Yeah, I have a whole book on his. But the reason
did you get the Flesk one that came out recently?
It's the Franklin Booth Symphony. That's the book I have.
Yep, that one that's a good one. Yeah, I just got that. I
mean, it's good. The reason I got interested in Franklin Booth though is because of Wrightson. Because Wrightson for Frankenstein is referenced.
Yep, big Franklin Booth influence for sure.
But I still like Wrightson doing Booth more than Booth. I mean, dude, the guy's an amazing illustrator. It's just Wrightson's my guy, it makes sense. Yeah. No, I Franklin Booth, for me, it's all about his the way he does skies, and like there's like a sense of awe that he inspires that I really enjoy. That I think it's very much a product of his time, that I don't think that like I want my work to feel a little more contemplative than his. I think his really is like whoa, it like wants to feel like grand and really big, and I'm more interested in like scenes where you just kind of stumble upon them. Like I like a thing that feels kind of incidental. So, but his technique is like unparalleled. Like he's insanely good. So yeah, big influence for sure. Cool.
But yeah, I try to pull other stuff in there as well. So
quick question. When you're working with bands, how often do you ever do like phone consultations and talk to them about the ideas, or is it mostly email and messaging? Like, how do you prefer that communication? And maybe
that's a good question. I think it depends on the project. Like I'm doing a project right now where I have because of it's a client I've worked with before, and so and there were things with the last time we worked where I was like, man, I wish I had been more forthcoming about like questions I had for them, where I feel like I could have delivered a better product if I had been more insistent about like, let's like communicate further about these ideas. And I still am proud of that work, but so with that one, I've been doing, we did a phone call recently to get kind of to start just kind of dipping our toes in that project and figuring out kind of what direction we want to go. And I'm still very early in the stages on that job, but most of my concepts I can kind of handle just over like DM or email. Like it, like I said, it depends on the job. I've definitely had some where, especially like if it's something that's more corporate, not like band stuff, they're going to insist you get on the call. Like they're going to want to have a Zoom call with you. They're going to want to, run you through the ringer of the committee of shooting down every idea you have, so for those kind of gigs, it's like you're kind of beholden to what the corporate ladder dictates, and you're just kind of, you're a cog in a machine at that point, which
Right.
those jobs are still fun though. I still can get stuff out of those, but working with the band is a lot more rewarding because we are both we're both on like the same level. It feels like it feels like a level playing field. It feels like, yes, I'm being hired by you to do work for you, but like we both are artists here, and we both have expectations, and we both have a need that needs to be filled. So like let's bring our forces together and do something that's going to be good for everybody. And like
That's
yeah,
definitely the
so
ideal.
yeah, totally. Like, when I see a band is like still selling my shirt 4 years later, I'm like, dude, that's like that's amazing. Like that's so sick to see. Like it's like, man, like how many times over have I been able to fill your like shitty van's gas tank on this tour or whatever, like it's very, very humbling, very exciting to see that stuff.
Very cool. So we've been looking at it in the background here, but you mind talking about this? Also the experience too, because didn't you meet Doug and Caroline?
Yeah, Doug and Caroline. Yeah, so Doug and Caroline, Doug from Scarcity, of course, and Caroline, who is, I think she's been on the podcast, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, multiple
Yeah,
times.
yeah. Dude, I love them both so much.
Yeah, they're
They
awesome.
came out, dude, just the best people. They came out to Utah last spring, about like I want to say end of March, beginning of April. They were just on a honeymoon, or I guess they're not married, but they were like, it was their anniversary. That's what it was. Sorry, not honeymoon. Yeah, it was their anniversary, and they just wanted to go on a cool trip out west, see some cool rocks. They live out in the city, so uh, Utah is drastically different from the city. It is its own alien landscape, and they got out into like they got really out there with going to all of the cool national parks that I regularly take for granted.
Yeah.
But so they came out here. We hung out for a day, and I took them all over Provo. There's a lot of great hiking around here, and um, just just hung out. And then a little while after they left, Doug hit me up and was kind of like, "Yo, I have new Scarcity stuff coming out." He had actually mentioned that like on the plane ride over, he'd been listening to demos for it and such. He's like, "We have a new Scarcity album coming out. I'd love to have you do the cover for it. I want to do something illustrated. I want to do some landscape stuff. Really inspired by the Utah landscape." And so I was just like, "Dude, sign me up." And Caroline had so much photos. She is an avid picture taker and like a really good photographer. Like really beautiful composition, really beautiful. Just a really good eye for like solid, like composition, solid shapes, solid values. Like, I mean, I look at her art, it's like, of course she is a good photographer, right? But so she sent me like 4 or 5 gigs worth of photos that she had taken in Utah. And I just spent like a couple hours going through everything, kind of looking for what felt like it would be kind of best suited for a cover for Scarcity, and went through a ton of different ideas. But this one, I can't remember. I think this monument's called Chimney Rock. I have to go through the folder again and figure out which monument this is at. I'm pretty sure it's Chimney Rock, though. Could be totally wrong, though. But we settled on this one because I just kept coming back to it. and it's just an all-time favorite of all of the photos. I mean, she had so many good ones, but this one was one where it was like, this feels iconic. You know, this feels like something where like it'll serve a purpose. Because a big thing that I had kind of been thinking about, because when they came out to visit, I had just finished the Moray record. I had just finished recording it, and I'd finished the album cover like a few days before. And something that I was really thinking of with that cover was how will this look if I'm seeing it on an Apple Watch? I don't have an Apple Watch, but I know a lot of people do. You know, it's like how will this look if it's 6 by 6 pixels? Like, will this idea still work? And will it still work if it's, you know, 6 feet by 6 feet printed on a big scrim behind the band or something? You know, like so it was kind of this idea of like, I want something that can read at every angle, despite how much detail I know I'm going to put into it. And that was also kind of part of the reason why we went with like and why I kind of keep leaning on the nocturnes. I really like night scenes because I think they give this nice contrast. I'm also a total night owl. Like, I am awake at ungodly hours. That's usually when I do my best drawing, is like between like probably 11 p.m. and like 4 or 5 a.m. is like my best productivity time.
Well, that's
which
weird.
it's weird. No, it's like pretty antisocial. And like, I know my real friends are the ones who like put up with the fact that like they're ending their day when mine is starting, you know, and they still will entertain that despite that. It's not always that way, but most of the time that's kind of how my body defaults, is like to this like night owl schedule. But because of that, you know, I always go on runs in the middle of the night at like 4 or 5 a.m. When it's still dark out. And I love looking at the mountains and seeing the way they're illuminated either by like the moon or by just the city around me. And yeah, always wanted to like kind of try to capture that in pen and ink, which I feel like this piece came very close. This one and the Pelican one, I feel like were probably some of my stronger nocturnes. And yeah, I think the star at the very top, that idea came like while I was on a run. Actually, I was running towards the mountains, and there was just, I think it was Venus was like right above the peak of one of the mountains, and it just looked like such a cool compositional idea to have this single kind of solitary star. And so yeah, that was really all there was to it. I feel really proud of it. I'll show you the original. Actually, I have it right back here.
Technical wise, you were talking, I think we were talking recording wise. I don't know if we're doing it backstage, but dude, the shadows and the depth of the shadows on that rock face, you absolutely nailed.
Here's the original too, if you want to see it.
Oh, I have a work in progress shot for this one too. Very cool. I love how you hand drew the border there too.
Yeah, I've been really fond of the borders, and yeah, it was really fun getting to like, I think my favorite detail, you can't really see it in any of the scans. I don't even know if you'll be able to see it on the webcam, but this tree shooting up into that sky.
Oh yeah.
That's probably one of the hardest things I've ever drawn. Like, that really broke my brain, trying to keep those lines continuous as they pass through behind the branches, and knowing where to keep that highlight. Like, that really
difficult.
And it was difficult, yeah. And like that, usually when I do the sky sections on any of these drawings, that's one sitting. I really don't like, that's why you'll never see a progress shot. You'll see maybe progress videos of me filling in a sky, but I try to always do those in one sitting, because if I extend it into 2 sittings or 3 sittings, the next day my marks are going to be totally different. And like, it's just going to throw off the vibe. Like, it's going to lose that repetition, that rhythm that I really like. So
that's a really good point, man. I do the same thing, but I haven't been as deliberate about that, you know.
Oh yeah, I will sit on a drawing that's like half done, like it just needs a sky, for like a week, until I know I have like a 6-hour chunk where I can be sitting in a desk. Like this, I think this sky took about 6 to 8 hours just for the sky. Like, and that was sitting in a chair the entire time, maybe a couple bathroom breaks, but like literally just like in the studio grinding that sky. Where the rest of the drawing, you know, I did that over a couple, probably like 2 weeks or a week and a half or so. I definitely took, I took too long starting this one. I was definitely in the weeds with this one. I think because I knew it was for friends. You know, I knew it was for Doug and Brendan, who are both just like super sweet guys been so fun to work with. I'm like, I don't want to let these guys down. I want to do something good. I knew it was going to be on the Flenser, and that's a label that's been really fun to work with. And they've put out so many, records I love. So I knew that they was going to have eyes on it. So I got really in my head about this one, and I dragged my feet for a long time before I finally just jumped in and like, okay, I got to start this. And, I think was ultimately a good thing, because I think it kept the energy really frenetic and really like there's some lines up in the top of the mountain that like, I don't know if I could do those again. Like, I don't know, like you can kind of see, they don't really pick up on the webcam very well, but I have some midtones in there that like, are extremely light, like really, like I was barely breathing my pen on the paper there. And, so I'm pretty proud of that piece, and it's exciting to see the reception it got. It seems like people have really, really responded well to it. I've had some prints of it at markets I've done, and every time I bring a print with me, it sells very quickly. People are really drawn to the image, so I think people are really excited to.
Got Utah pride there too, working in your favor.
Oh, big time! Yeah, no, I do. That is one thing I've really liked about working in landscapes, beyond just like the fact that landscapes are pretty forgiving about like whether or not you get an exactitude of the thing you're trying to draw. Where it's
you don't
like,
need to get a face or anything. Yeah.
Exactly. You draw a face. If something's wonky, people clock it immediately. If your rock's off, like nobody cares, that's been something that's been fun about landscapes as well, is that like it does feel like, even though I work with this band, like with this music scene that's pretty abrasive to a lot of the people out here, they would not, touch it with a 10-foot pole. I'm able to kind of still work with those clients and, be able to like, interact with this like stuff that I like have found deep meaning with, and other people are able to connect with the imagery outside of it being, a part of, a band's repertoire,
Right. There's like some 60-year-old woman who has this like, framed on her wall, but also being used by like, some musicians.
I have, there is like the drawing I did for Blackwing. I was really bummed that one sold before it was even licensed by Dan for that project. And I regretted selling it, especially more so after the fact when Dan ended up using it. I was like, man, that's like, I wish that either I had it or he had it, but
yeah.
I don't know who has it. For all I know, it probably is like a 60-year-old woman somewhere in, southern Utah. But I have a funny story about one piece, that somebody saw at a show, and I think they were trying to undercut the gallery. I think they knew like, well, the gallery's going to take a cut. So if I hit this kid up directly, maybe I can get a deal and just pay him what his cut would be, and that'll be good enough. Which I was like, you saw the price. That's the price. If you want to buy it directly from me, I'll take both halves, but like that's the price. Like,
yeah.
And we were talking about it, and at one point he asked me about it. It's literally a landscape. It's just a nocturnal landscape, and he asked me if there was any like hidden dark meaning behind the piece. And I was kind of just like, I don't know, man. Like, do you want there to be? Because if you're scared of it, maybe don't buy it. Like, I don't know, dude. Like,
what do you want?
Yeah, like I was like, man, like, no, it's a landscape at night. Like, if that's scary to you, like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, bro. But yes, that was one of the funnier interactions I've had with.
Did he buy it or what? What happened?
No, he didn't. He ended up he was trying to get me to lower the price too much, and I probably should have sold it to him, but I like that drawing too, so I was like, I'll just keep it, whatever. If somebody wants it someday, they can have it. But
oh, that's funny. All right, what we got here? Cool. So was this done? So it says 2022, right?
Yeah, this is 22. So this is kind of what I was talking about, where I always try to go between doing something from my imagination and then doing something from a lot of reference. And so this one, you could probably tell, is way more imaginative. There was basically no reference. I think I referenced a little bit for the like little cathedral over there. The original's really small too. It's up here. I can show it to you. sorry, just hit
Do
my
you
mic
find
there.
that you're shifting towards working larger or smaller as you get more experience?
Man, I wish I could answer that question. Oh, sorry, Kat's got to get let out here.
It's all good.
Didn't even know she was in here. Um, so here's the original. You can
Why do you
see
do
like
this to yourself, man?
I know, right? I mean that my thumbnail is as big as the cathedral, basically.
Yeah.
But so I don't really know why I started going so small. I think some of it was this like sense of um, I like the like exactness of it, or I like the precision of it. Like it's something really satisfying about drawing that way. But then inevitably, like working big just takes so long,
Yeah.
and so it becomes kind of this like back and forth. So like yeah, like with album covers, I have been working a little bit bigger. Like the Scarcity one here is an 11 by 11, as is the Moray one, and those ones they I love the effect of them, but they do take a really long time. And the other thing that's nice about working small is that when you blow it up, you don't lose as many details because each of those lines gets a little thicker. So I've actually had a lot of luck with pieces being expanded, where I'll draw it at like 6 inches tall, or 7 inches tall, and when it's blown up to 20 inches tall for a t-shirt design, the printer doesn't have to worry about losing as much detail with those little fine lines, because everything, all those lines are a little bit thicker because of the size expanding. Everything grows with it. But
Right.
this was a personal piece, though. I was kind of between. I think I had just finished. I'm trying to remember what job I just finished. I think I just finished a shirt for Locrian, or a hoodie design for Locrian, and I'd been playing some Elden Ring, and so I was like big in like Castle World that week. I was like really enjoying like castles and stuff, and I like I think a lot about like language and the limitations that it has. I write about that on my album a lot, and I feel like this drawing is kind of a visualization of that, with this idea of like a thought being this like pure thing coming into a head, and then inevitably being like scorched as it leaves the mouth. Yeah, just kind of a reflection on that. Also, probably some like religious anger in there, but uh, that's kind of that's something that always kind of comes up in these subtle ways. I'm like, oh, I thought I was over that, but I guess I'm still kind of mad. Okay. But yeah, so, and this one was funny too, because this one got an honorable mention at a religious show here in Utah County, which was surprising to see, since it felt very much anti that, maybe. There's literally a burning church in it, but I think people liked the technique of it. And yeah, there's things about it that I wish I had taken more time with the angel's face, but also it's like 3 dots with my pen. Like it's literally smaller than my pinky fingernail. So I don't feel too bad about how that came out. And this one also, like I said, because it was just fully imaginative, I didn't really have much of a plan for it as I was going. I was just kind of filling up space as I went, which led to kind of a weird composition, I think, with like the 2 buildings kind of being cropped off of the side in this strange way that I don't think I would ever normally like consciously decide to do, but that's just kind of how it ended up coming out. And I kind of like it, though. It's kind of fun.
I like seeing something that's different in the creativity in it, like it's cool.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun drawing it. I want to do more stuff like this too. Just kind of more free flowing, just but still with the intention to like fully finish it. Cause I do a lot of that in my sketchbook, but it doesn't really crystallize fully ever. It usually kind of stays somewhat it kind of gets to a point where I'm like, I worked it out of my system, time to go start a job again. It's like I can't really I think that's also part of why I like drawing small as well, because I can finish a drawing a little bit faster that way too.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. I find myself working bigger and bigger. That's where I want to go, which
Yeah, I do like working bigger as well, and I do want to work bigger more often, but uh, there's something about like yeah the precision of like I have like one chance to like get this tiny little thing in there, and like if I'm off by like the smallest margin of like it will change things pretty drastically. So that's always been a fun challenge to me, even though it's. I had a friend once look at my drawings. He's like, "Bro, what are you doing? Like, you're drawing yourself into a corner. Like, don't do this to yourself. Like, draw bigger, man." Like,
I mean, I've done both, and I think for me, it's because I'm shifting to be more brush oriented. I
yeah,
like to
brush
work
stuff
bigger for that.
totally, and I do think that's a direction I'd like to take, especially like I want to get back into painting again. I haven't really painted since college, and uh, it was never like color was always something where I kind of told myself, once I like get my value to a point where I feel really strongly like I know how to like work with value, then I want to start introducing color. Um, and then I realized you can't ever get there. Like you never will feel comfortable with anything. Like
Yeah,
there
I
will
just dive
always
in.
be there's always room to improve. Exactly. So that's something where I'm like, I need to get back to it. I have some paintings kicking around over here that are just gathering dust that I'm like, man, I should
Wait,
take a stab at those
acrylic?
again.
Is that what you're using?
Oil. I did a lot of gouache as well. Let me show you one of these. This is like an old one.
Here, hold up. Oh, that's cool.
Totally unfinished. Yeah. And then here's another one here. And these are just studies that I did for fun in my free time. Uh, just a little landscape. But I mean, you can see like my values are a mess on this. I almost don't even want to show this, um, but it was like there's something too. I think the fact that color can invoke a different level of feeling
Yeah.
That black and white just can't. I think about like I have a buddy. His name's Quinn Henderson. He's a fantastic painter out in Guelph, Ontario. Really, you'd love his work. Honestly, he's very sensitive to color in a way that feels very psychedelic. Like he'll incorporate colors that you wouldn't expect or wouldn't think to like use in a situation, but he'll do it in a way that feels so organic to like the piece. It's really, really amazing stuff.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to balance my time between the pen and ink and the color stuff because
Feel it, yeah.
not that it really matters because I think you should just kind of follow your own compass. But in terms of the reception of my work, it seems like there's more of a like, whoa factor with my pen and ink stuff. But I know that with enough practice and just keep doing it and I hammer it down, the paintings will get there. So it's
Yeah.
a matter of like doing both because I do enjoy both. Like that's important. I'm doing what I
Yeah, I
like.
know. And your color stuff is already so on point that like, and especially like now seeing the Robert Williams influence too, it's like I could see you really getting to that point. Like I could see, I guess, have you messed ever with like mixing ink and because I know like you do watercolor mostly, right?
Yeah, so like doing like line work, drawing, and then painting underneath it.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm trying to find that balance
yeah. Do you
because
ever look at Arthur Rackham's work? Have you ever seen his stuff?
yeah, like a really old fantasy painter, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
I like his
Yeah,
stuff a
yeah.
lot. Yeah,
Yeah, I could see your stuff taking that direction for sure. Like because yeah, he has a great balance between line work and color. That's really exciting to look at. And I think that's one of the reasons I have struggled with painting is because once I'm in that place, the way I view a line it totally shifts from how I do with ink.
yeah,
And it's pretty disorienting for me to interact with that. Like something that I want to get better at, but for the time being, every time I've tried to um, play with that, it just the rule set changes so drastically that it really throws me off. So
yeah. It's there's so many different mediums and approaches and stuff, and we're all kind of just trying to find our way to like mix them together. Like for me, I'm holding off on adopting acrylic or oil in a very intentional way, because I think that there's a lot of like really cool exploratory things that happen in like the watercolor realm that I want to try to really pursue until I
Yeah.
open up more doors.
Have you played with gouache at all?
Yeah. Oh, I use it,
Okay,
but
cool. Yeah, 'cause I
not
was gonna say I could.
purely gouache. I
Yeah,
use it as a
like a
I
highlight kind of stuff.
highlight, final touches, tightening, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Because
Because it's
I've had
great.
friends. Yeah, oh, gouache is fun. Yeah, no, I've had friends who used it in like a very watercolor type way, and then they slowly layer on. I think that's kind of how like Andrew Wyeth was painting as well. Even though I think he was egg tempera, but similar, water soluble kind of paint.
I think Caroline's doing a whole series that's very
Caroline does a
heavy.
lot of gouache. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She has a couple like album covers that are fully gouache that are really impressive too. Yeah, that stuff always makes me just like miss painting. Like, yeah, it's an old practice that I like. I dream to get back to it. I think for me, the thing that would get me to do it would be if I could talk a client into like trusting me on it and just being like, look, I don't have a lot to show you as far as this work goes, but I want to try it. If it fails, I'll give you an ink drawing, but like, let's just try it out, if I could find somebody willing to take a risk and just like commission a painting from me, that would probably be the thing that would light a fire under my ass to do it. But like, it's like, I got to pay the bills. And right now it's ink is what's doing that. So I can't really stray at the moment,
Yeah, that's something that Caroline talks about a lot. I mean, we're mentioning her multiple times. And if you're watching, hey Caroline. But like she talks a lot about like having that space and time for play and like figuring stuff out, So
yeah, I definitely.
It's hard when you're like your livelihood is based off of your art though, because like for me it's not. It's an escape.
Yeah, and that is something where I have been like toying with the idea. Like I've had, since going freelance, I've had a couple times where I've had like little side things that have sort of supplemented that have been really helpful. At the moment I don't, and that's something where I'm kind of looking at that like, if the right opportunity came up, I'd probably take it just for the sake of literally what you're saying, like being able to like turn down a job that maybe isn't a good fit and use the time where I would be doing that job on something personal. Cause I literally haven't done much personal drawing. Like I think this image on the screen right now is the last like true personal piece I did. Oh no, I think I've done one more since then, but like as far as like finished personal pieces goes, like this one and the Moray album cover the Green Knight drawing that I did that I think is later in the slides. That one and
like the movie Green Knight.
It's based on the Arthurian legend, but yeah, the movie's based on that as well. But yeah,
like
I think it's
bozo, like the movie.
Oh no! I that
You're
movie's
right.
sick.
That's like, oh yeah,
that movie's so sick. No, and that's why I drew it, was because I love that movie, but I didn't love that the Green Knight in the movie looked like an Ent from Lord of the Rings. Like I wanted him. Because in the original story, he's just like a dude who's green. So I was like, I want to draw my own. So I think that slides in here. So we'll get to that one.
Yeah. Well, I'm keeping an eye on the time too. We might need to go just a hair faster.
Yeah, we'll zoom through some of these. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So these two, the one on the left here is the one that Blackwing used for their record. I think they used it as a single art, and then it was on the inner sleeve of the CD and vinyl and tape. And the record was called No Moon, and I already had the drawing done. I originally did it. It's the view from across from where my old practice space used to be back in like 2018, 2017 time. And we were just across the street from these train tracks, and occasionally you get like these beautiful full moons. So I just wanted to draw that. And I liked the idea of taking again, like my concentric lines and just doing that to try to convey like kind of the glowing of the sky. So yeah, that piece is one that I'm pretty proud of. It was really small. That's the one that sold out of the gallery too, that I was kind of bummed to see. It was probably about that big, like 6 and
really strong design elements to this one, like
thanks. Yeah,
I feel like people who are like you know the type, like the like graphic designers that
Yes,
loved it.
yes.
They would like this one, you
They
know?
do. I've actually seen that firsthand when I'm like selling prints of
Yeah.
it at markets and stuff. Like like when you see the graphic, the dudes who like knolling, they're like
Yes,
laying out all their
exactly.
like if they are really drawn to this. And I think it is just like the slightly off kilter telephone line, the single pole next to it, and then you have the railroad switch, the two tracks at the bottom, the moon. Like yeah, like the composition ended up working out in a way that I did not intend for it to work, and I was really really stoked when that kind of came together. So yeah, that's a piece I'm pretty proud of. And then the one next to that is to the right. That's a piece that I did for the band Locrian from Chicago. They've been a favorite since high school. I love that band. Really good, like droney, sort of ambient with a little bit of metal edge to it. Like they're really experimental, really cool stuff. But they had an album called Cenotaph to the Final, or they had a song on their album, not their most recent album, but one from 2022, I believe, called Cenotaph to the Final Glacier. And the whole album was like, they've been doing a lot of stuff about like global warming and stuff. And so they had this song about, the final glacier melting. And for this piece, I had the reference of that bottom, that sand that's from the Great Salt Lake. There's, the sandy beach next to it always gets these really beautiful diffusion reactions that just kind of show up. They show up all over nature, but in particular, this one was just really nice, like reflective with the sand and the water. And I'd had that for a long time. I'd been wanting to draw it. And when I had the idea of like the glacier melting, I was like, well, what if it was like a glacier melting in a desert? Like I kind of like that idea. And what if the desert also could read as water? Like it could be an ocean or it could be sand, I like the ambiguity of that.
Black and white to your benefit there because it
totally, yeah. Because it exactly can be either or. And I hit up my younger brother, who is he's a big climber. He's doing like spelunking lately, like going into caves and stuff. Like he's just total mountain kid. And he's a great photographer. He has a lot of really good photos. And I hit him up. I was just like, dude, any chance you have any glacier photos? Like I don't have any. And he immediately got back to me. I guess in high school, he had done a trip to Glacier Bay out in Alaska. He's like, dude, here's a couple. And he had some really nice ones. And so this was one of his photos. So I just put them together, photoshopped it, and just knocked this one out kind of fast for them. And the hoodies turned out great. This dude Sage, who does, I think they're called, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting his print shop name? Oh my gosh, I feel so bad now. But he printed them and he did a really good job on those. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that image for sure. It's I feel bad. It got into a show. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it got into a show last year, and my car broke down like the week I was supposed to take it up to the gallery up in Salt Lake, and there was just no way for me to bring it up. So it hasn't. I don't think anybody's seen it in person yet, other than if you come to my house, kind of a thing. But
I love the foreshortening of the lines. They come towards you, man. Like you made so many cool like decisions that give it a lot of depth. Like, and then the reflective, like those little, it's almost like they're carved out and to have that water reflect. Like just
yeah, I was really stoked on how that came out. And I mean, I owe so much of that to just good reference. Like I got really lucky with the reference for that one, and it like the way it lined up perfectly, where like you have these dark shadows that kind of continue in the places where you have the dark shadows of the mountain. Like the way the reflections worked out, it was like it came together so nicely. I was really stoked when I got the reference put together. And so yeah, drawing it went really fast because I was so stoked on how nicely it came together. And honestly, I was stoked on how much of it I actually got to just like be on cruise control. I like to build in. Yeah, like I like to build in, I call it like road trip time, where you're just like listening to podcasts and music and just chilling. And like, I'm not making active decisions beyond just like making sure I'm like following my reference. Like, it's like, I got my map plugged in here on the phone. I got some snacks going. I'm chilling. Yeah. It's road trip time, And so I just have to sit here for the next 12 hours with my ass in a chair and finish it. And that's a good feeling. So, this one was fun. I really had a good time with it. And it's one of these weird ones where like when I first finished it, I felt a little underwhelmed by it, but like it's really grown on me the longer I've like had it. And like when the band sent me the hoodie when it was finished, I was seeing it in person. I was like, oh yeah, this feels good. Like it's very cool. It's like one of the few it's one of the few of my own shirts where I will like regularly wear that hoodie, you know, like I don't do that often, but with that one, I'm like, this is a cool enough hoodie that, and their logo is so sick. Like, I don't know, it all came together really nicely. It was fun working with them too.
Nice, man. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. So this one is, God, I look fucked up in that top picture.
That's you, 4 a.m. That's you who you're talking about.
Oh, that's in that picture. I think it was 9 a.m. after a full night. Like that was a brutal one. Yeah. So this image was this was me kind of taking that night sky idea of, you know, electrifying the sky to its logical conclusion. I was like, what would I do if like I want my version of like a Rothko of just like the intricacies of my pen moving around in every direction, but I want it to also be able to swallow me. Like I want it to be huge. Like I just want to sit in front of this black paper that is full of lines and just like let it just like swallow me. Like I loved that idea. And so I really wanted to pursue that, even though it was like, I know this is a little bit of a risk because it's like fully abstract, but at the time I did it, it was 2019. And I don't share a lot of my work from 2019 because I was really in the weeds. Like I don't know what I was doing that year. I mean, I was putting a lot of energy, 2019, 2018, I was putting a lot of energy into like playing live shows. And so the drawings I did do were just really indulgent, which can be fun, but also like left me with a portfolio where like, when I look at that year, there's just this weird gap of like, there's nothing I really like from this year, except for this drawing, which I started in 2019. And yeah, you can see how it kind of grew there. It was I think 28 inches by 36 inches was how big the paper is. And I think the drawing was 23 by 32 inches. So a big drawing. And I was using a 01 and a 08 for most of it. At the beginning, I was using like a 005, and I was like, I'm never going to finish this if I don't get a bigger pen going. Like I gotta, you know. And there were a lot of times, like I worked on this one for 4 years. And there were many times. Yeah, 4 years. So I started in 2019. I finished it last year in October. So 2023 is when it wrapped up. And granted, there were like months and months where I wouldn't touch it. It like felt like a chore that I was just like, I don't even want to look at that thing like that. But then it would just kind of sit there, gather dust. There were a few times where I also like drew myself into a corner where like I broke my own rule. I took a section of lines too far and I had to go over and white them out to like fix the rule that I had broken, where I think if I were doing it now, I would have just kept going. Like, I don't know what, like I was just so like stuck on this thing. I really like it. Like to me, it was like the concept was so important that like the whiteout was worth it instead of just like allowing the lines to just be what they were, you know? So yeah, it took 4 years, and when I posted it, it went really viral on Twitter actually, which was kind of stressful. You don't realize how many people hate abstract art still until they're confronted with abstract art and they get mad about it. It's really weird. Like, yeah, no, people are still like, people still have that vibe. And I think so. And the thing that you'll see with like pretty much anything that goes viral is it's like, there's two comments that every person is making basically. And with this one, it was basically, at first I thought it was a black square, and then I zoomed in. That was like the main number one comment. Second comment was, I still don't see it. What is it supposed to be? Literally 600 people saying this to me. Like it was kind of insane. And, it was exciting because it's like, you know, I have never had that many eyes on anything I've done in my life. But it was weird for it to be on something that was fully abstract that I want to do more of these, but I don't know when, you know? So yeah, I can show you, I actually have a print of it here. I've been making prints of it, and I can show you they're to scale. I was really lucky that, really kind of friend named Lindsay hit me up, and she works at the BYU library doing, scanning their rare books. And, she was like, if you want to bring this by the library after hours, I would happily photograph it for you. So she got a beautiful, like the file's like 4 gigs, like it's a massive file. Yeah. So this is this is roughly the size. I think this is actually to scale how big I drew it. Every line on here is exactly the size that it was drawn in the original.
Crazy. There we go.
Yeah, so actually just mine.
I think it's just one of those, man, where I feel like the in-person experience with it is where it really makes the biggest impact.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited too. That got into the Springville Salon that opens. Actually, it opens on Saturday, and so I finally am getting to show that for the first time. I'm really excited about it because it's just been living in my room for the last 5 years now. So yeah, it's gonna be cool for people to finally get to like have the experience, and it's been great that like people have bought prints, and I know like it's hanging in people's houses, which is great to know because it's like it's meant to be seen in person. Like it the way it works on your eyes. I was like whenever I'm up at the print lab printing these, I'll always have somebody comment like these are hurting my eyes. Like what is this like? But yeah, I'm very proud of how it came out, and like even with like the weird, the weird reception it got, which
that's it on the right there.
Yeah, that's it on the right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's framed by my great friend Joe, who's a fantastic framer, fantastic builder, fantastic ceramicist, like just one of the most creative people I know. They're awesome. Yeah, it was surreal to see people react to it in a way that felt like initially, like it's like I've never had people react negatively to something I've made. So initially it was hard to not kind of take it personally, but very quickly it was very easy to be like, oh, like I don't actually care. Like,
well, it's a good thing, man. Think about art history. Everything that provokes is what's remembered.
Truly. And that's something a couple friends pointed out that was like really exciting to hear too. Cause like I hadn't really considered that, but yeah, it was like, I like the way I still hear people talk shit about Jackson Pollock. It's like, dude, how can you still be talking shit about Jackson Pollock in the year of our Lord 2024? Like that's actually crazy to me. Like that people would have that reaction, and like, but I think people are so, to me, it points to the fact that people are really dependent upon the idea of visual meaning, like things like meaning is really important to people. And that's something I do want to play with more, is the idea that like things can just look the way they do and they don't have to mean anything. And like, even if they do mean something to one person, they're not going to mean the same thing to somebody else. So it's like, why do we need to have this consensus understanding of this material we're viewing when like it doesn't really benefit us one way or the other necessarily to have that? I mean, obviously certain circumstances it does, but with art, it's like, it doesn't need to be that, it doesn't need to be something for it to be something. If that, I don't know, that, does that mean anything?
I'm with you. No, just like, I mean, I think James Jean has a lot of stuff that has meaning to him, but if I'm not mistaken, he doesn't share a lot of his meaning behind his art very openly. That's a great example actually of somebody who he like toys with that line between the illustration and the fine art thing. Oh yeah, he's one of my heroes. He'd be on my Mount Rushmore.
Okay, yeah, hell yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that in like your gestures for sure. I like that his stuff feels pretty inscrutable as far as like what he's choosing to portray. I've always enjoyed that. And like, I kind of want to do that in my own way, but I do think because I'm in Utah, I have leaned a little bit more into a representational direction, just because I know that like the people who are around me who are going to see this stuff, they tend to cling to that a little bit more. And I've trained to be able to show that stuff anyway. So like, why would I throw that out the window totally? Like, I feel like I am able to like I feel like I'm able to have both in my experiences with having a psychedelic sky of these kind of Moray patterns and then having a very grounded landscape. It feels like I really get to have a solid experience of both. And I've felt really grateful for that. And I hope I can push that more. I think the reception to this abstract piece really excited me as well, because it does show me that I can go in that direction more. And it will, like, people will respond positively. Like, I've had people offer to buy the original, which almost never happens when people like that, people hit me up like wanting an original. Usually if they want an original, it's because they see it framed in a gallery somewhere.
Well, that's probably a
And
pretty pricey original, though, I imagine.
I'm not selling it. I
Yeah.
couldn't. It's like, that was one where I'm like, 4 years of my life, like, I had so many really intense experiences through that, like, I like literally almost died at one point while I was drawing that drawing. And I remember, like, being in the hospital, like, that was like the one thing I was thinking was like, I didn't get to finish the big drawing. Like, shit. Like, I got it. Like it was, yeah, it sounds dramatic. I had a spontaneous lung collapse, in 2020. And, yeah, that was like the one thing I was like fixated on while through that experience was like, I need to finish this now. Like, I can't, like, and at that point was when I started actually sharing progress pictures. Prior to that, I would occasionally post a story picture with like a close up, but I really didn't talk about the piece until after that. And then I was like, no, I'm gonna start documenting this way more diligently because maybe I don't get to finish it, Yeah, so that was a surreal experience. And then the big blue one here, this was a commission for Sundance Mountain Resort, previously like Sundance Ski Resort. I don't remember. They rebranded. They're like Mountain Resort now, but it's Sundance of like the Sundance Film Festival fame.
Okay.
After they rebranded, they had a studio going through and just doing full like overhaul of all of their signage, all of their pamphlets and everything. And they got in touch with me through my friend Casey, who I think I mentioned him earlier. Casey Jack Smith. Have you seen his work at all?
No.
He's great. He's the one. Oh, he's the one who runs the drawing stall I was telling you about, that Instagram page.
Yeah, you got a lot of stuff to send me after this.
I'll send you a list. I'll remember.
Yeah, please.
But Casey's great. They got in touch with him about doing some illustrations for it, and he passed them along to me. So I got to do a little landscape for them, and I got to draw their kind of lodge building. They just, they sent me a CAD rendering, and I basically recreated it in ink. It was really straightforward. Actually, I can show you it. I have it right here. It was fun. It wasn't particularly challenging, but it was a good, I can get my portfolio here. So it's in here somewhere. But so after I did that job with them, they got back in touch with me a couple months later. Oh, here it is. So this was little, just really straightforward. It's like, this is the front entryway. But so what's kind of fun is they hit me up because they wanted a painting to hang literally in this little alcove right here.
Okay.
And I wish I had drawn it in there. I think that would have been fun, but
yeah, that would have been nice.
It was after I had done this drawing that I got to do this job with them. But so they wanted a huge mural to hang in there, and I had no idea what I was doing with it. But I got really lucky that like the day they hit me up was like the day a friend got in touch with a friend who got me access to his studio that I could use, because I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to paint a 6-foot tall mural in my bedroom. Like, that's brutal. And so they got me in touch. I got in touch. My friend Jefferson put me in touch with my friend Nick, who let me use his studio for that time. And this was one where, like I said, we had a committee of people to go through to approve this design. I would have done it a lot differently, but it was really rushed. It was like, I think I started the painting on Thanksgiving, and it was delivered by December 12th, I want to say, or December 11th. Like, I was pulling all-nighters like every night to fill this thing up. I also don't use brushes very often. This is the last time I had held a brush, like first time in like 3 years at this point that I had held a brush, and I was like using it to draw lines. It was really intimidating, but it was also a great example of like, I will try to learn what medium I need to do to make this job happen, because it's a job. And this is really that's a really fortunate position to be in, to be able to like be learning on the job and, have somebody trusting you to deliver a product.
how
you
all
know.
artists and illustrators are at some point, for sure. Like you just get
Yeah,
thrown in and you figure it out.
you figure it out. Yeah. So this one was painted on a aluminum dye bond, which thank God my buddy Howard Lyon, who's a really awesome. Uh, he's does a ton of magic cards. He's done a ton of books for like Brandon Sanderson and stuff. Like he's a really talented painter, but he writes for Muddy Colors pretty regularly. And he happened to do a blog post like a few years back about painting on aluminum dye bond and how to like prep those panels and like how to paint on it. And it was a godsend. Like it literally like it like made this job possible because I had no idea what I was doing. So I just got delivered these massive, fridge sized pieces of aluminum, and I just had to dive in with, and because it was meant to be displayed outside. So I was like, well, it needs to be in a material that's going to be able to withstand, a Utah blizzard up in Provo Canyon. So, so I had to paint it in house paint. And yeah, I had pitched them something black and white, but I think it was their art director or, somebody was, really interested in this piece that they had seen that was like a tree painted on a blue with like a white. It almost looked like a blueprint of like a tree or something. It was a really cool piece.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, well, let me invert my drawing here and we'll do it this way. So did this massive blue layer and then just, projected a mountain onto it and just went to town with it. I definitely, I feel like this photo doesn't really do justice to a lot of the little details that are in there, but it was, like I said, I had basically 2 weeks to paint it.
That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a struggle, and it's still hanging up there. If anybody ever comes to Utah, comes to Sundance, you should go take a picture with it. It's pretty big. It's pretty blue.
What's next? Let me just take
All right. Yeah.
Is there one? Oh, there's a few more.
Well, we'll go fast. So the first one on the left here, that's actually all three of these have been covers for my band. I love that you put these together because I've used all three of these as Moray covers. The first one on the left there was drawn in 2016, maybe 2017, but I believe it was 2016. So I was 22 maybe, and it's a drawing where I've like unconsciously used this composition so many times now. Like I've come back to this compositional theme of this like centered thing in the bottom quadrant more time. Like it happens subconsciously all the time. It's so funny. My friends will point it out like, oh, you did it again. I'm like, shoot. I've kind of outgrown it now, but it still comes up sometimes where I'm like, oh, there it is again. But
I have those things too, man. S curves.
Yeah,
I do S curves all over the place.
I see those in your portfolio for sure. Yeah, a lot of S curves. But yeah, so this one was, I just wanted like a cool tomb out, or like a door to like a mausoleum of some sort, just kind of out in a field in the night. It was this was definitely the start of me doing nocturnes. It was I think maybe the first time I did a sky like this, so it was pretty rusty. Like I didn't really know how to approach it, but for where my skill was at the time, I feel like it came out pretty good. I had a lot of fun drawing those clouds, and the trees and everything. Like it was really just a fun, like meditative piece. Like there was really nothing about it that felt like a struggle. It really felt like it just came together super effortlessly for the most part. And like, there's a lot of stuff about it that I look at now as a 30-year-old and I'm like, ooh, like, I don't know about that, but I still stand by it. Like I still like the piece, and I still like I used it as my first album cover and was really stoked to have it on there. Like it felt really cool, and I feel like it really set the tone for my project. The one next to that is a photo my friend Sebi took at a place called Elephant Rock out in California, and he just had this beautiful photo. It was like kind of off kilter. Like it was like just a phone picture, but I loved it. I was like, bro, can I draw that please? That's so sick. So he sent it to me, and it just was a really fun, it was kind of the first time I really explored texturing rock surfaces. Like I think prior to this, like I would definitely include shading where I saw it necessary on a rock, but I wasn't really fixated on what textures were on the surfaces. And I feel like the composition of it was really fun to work on. There's like a few little sections in there that are just like some of my favorite little like moments in a drawing that I've done. And I used this one as a cover for just like a 2-song little ambient thing that I did to just to like get the dust off of Moray. You know, I had played a lot of shows in 2018, 2019 a little bit. And then, I guess like beginning of 2019, stuff with the band fell apart, you know, personalities clash, there's always drama. And so I kind of just put Moray away for a while and just went back into drawing mode. And this piece, after it was done, it kind of just like, I had a couple little like ambient tracks that I've just been playing on a MIDI keyboard, just, you know, in GarageBand with. And I kind of had this weird feeling because it was like, you know, it was coming up to my birthday and my first album had come out on my birthday. I was like, what if I put out another record this year just for fun or just to put out a couple songs? And so I just threw this on the cover and put it out there. And those songs are nothing, you know, they're nothing to write home about. But they were a good kind of like proof of concept for me to be like, okay, like this is still like, it was like reclaiming this thing as like, this is my project. I still want to make music. I still want to do this thing. I want to show up for it in the ways I can. Like, this is a good way for me to like get my toes wet again. And then that leads into the last piece on the right there, which is, I held up the original earlier. I still have it here sitting next to me. It's called The Natural World, which is the name of the album, which was a working title. I wasn't planning on calling the album that, but every time I went to change the title to something else, just nothing would stick. You know, it was just one of these things where the idea wanted to be this. So I was like, okay, gotta trust the process with that one.
Yep.
Yeah. So this one is a photo taken in Joshua Tree out in California, by my friend Amber. And then the door knocker in the front is, it's from, I believe, Cologne Cathedral in Germany. And it was originally inspired by, in Durham Cathedral in England, there's a really creepy old like lion looking door knocker guy with an Ouroboros for his knocker.
Oh, cool.
And, my dad had a really cool photo of that, and I was just going to draw that as the cover, but I liked the idea of a lion. Like, I'm a Leo, so I was like, I like the lion idea, but, I wanted it to be something where, similar to the first album cover, and even to a degree the second one, I like the idea of something that pulls the viewer into the composition. You know, in the first one you have this door that's just extremely like inviting. People always like, when I sell at markets, I'll watch people look at that piece and like stop because of that. For whatever reason, that door just like jumps out to them. And then the second piece, I think it appeals to a different crowd, but I think it does a similar thing because of that rock in the foreground kind of pointing up in between to where it kind of goes beyond. Like it has a similar I like
the tilted horizon line on it.
Yeah, totally. And like you have these two boulders that kind of create this hallway that leads to that horizon, you know? So it all kind of, it does the same thing in its own way. It kind of pulls you through this curve. And then the last piece, I was like, I want it to be a direct invitation. Like I want it to be this thing where it's like, and I live in this house here in Provo. It's a 100-year-old house. It's a beautiful house. It's a beautiful, huge arched window and an arched door. And there's an old like wrought iron knocker on the door that people cannot help themselves but wake me up with every single day. When there's a package that they could just gently knock on the door with their finger, they choose, gosh, it's crazy. But I was thinking about that because I'm like, clearly people feel like compelled to use this thing. Like to the point where I had a roommate who put like a little, one of those foam like chair, those like foam chair things you put on the chairs. He put one of those on the door knocker to make it less loud. So people would go a little less crazy with it. Like for whatever reason, it shakes the whole house. But I liked the idea of this door knocker being this like invitation to like, do you enter, you know? And that's kind of the theme of that record in a way, is kind of this like, it's about, kind of interacting with, your life, your like the listener, your, you know, proverbial life, and how it relates to nature basically, and how it relates to the world, you know. That's really what it was kind of a reflection on. So I was kind of going for that with that cover. And, man, I had a really cool idea that I wanted to do desperately for a vinyl. If I couldn't find a label to do vinyl, But I had this idea, and I prepared the files for you. I ought to show you the mock-ups I made, but basically the idea was to have a die cut where the sky was, where you have that totally cut out, and then the sky pattern I went in digitally and expanded it, drew it as a 12 by 12 sheet of paper, and then had an inverted version that would be on the back sheet of a foldable lyric sheet. So you have the lyrics on the inside, foldable sheet. So that way, as you're listening, you can have it be daytime or nighttime, depending on which side of the album you're listening to. Because I wrote the songs kind of thinking about like side A is the daytime, side A is, spring and summer, and then side B of the record would be the nighttime and it's fall and winter. So it's like if you listen to the record, you can hear a direct like point at which there's a halfway point of the record where it feels like it gets much darker and much more just a lot more cold and like more traditional black metal, where the first half is a little bit more experimental, a little bit more riffy and fun. And so I liked the idea of the listener being able to change it from day to night as they listen to the record. And I still would love to do that. If any labels are listening and want to put out this record on vinyl, I still would love to do that. But I know it's a hard sell when I'm like, I didn't put any money into advertising at all. I haven't put any money into anything with this band other than just like, getting it recorded and putting the music out there. I very much treat music like a hobby. So,
No, I feel you. And you got to have that balance, kind of what we're talking about, like something to escape from,
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, out of these slides, any in particular that you wanted to cover, any of these images? I like this one with the bee a lot in particular. I love that patterning you did with the honeycomb.
Yeah, that was actually for Zabernet's first comic that he put out, or his first like full length graphic novel. He'd put out comics already, but his like collected edition of his story Andromeda, he had a little art gallery pinup section at the back, and he had some heavy hitters in there. It starts with the Mike Mignola piece, and when I saw that, I was like, oh shit, like
oh shit,
I gotta draw something good now. Like I was just gonna knock something out real fast, but yeah, so I was like, well, what can I do that feels like it fits the theme of the story? And there's the bees show up throughout the story very, very regularly as this kind of theme, and it's a very nature-based story. So like we're both big fans of the band Earth, and they have that song, the bees made honey in the lion's skull. And so I was kind of thinking about that title and imagining like a skull as the sky, and like the sky as a honeycomb, and like it kind of just all came together. And that's another one too where it's been really fortunately a good like it's been a good Utah fan art. People from Utah love it because it's Utah's the beehive state.
Yes.
And so it inadvertently kind of became that as well. But yeah, it's been a favorite. And then the Green Knight next to that, that's the one I was talking about earlier, where that's probably the last proper like personal piece I did. I did shirts of that I really love, but I feel like every time I wear it, somebody's like, oh, that's you on your shirt. So I kind of stopped wearing it. But
I don't really see it.
I don't see it either, but people say it for whatever reason. I think when my beard's longer, maybe people see it more, but
I didn't think anything of it.
I didn't think so either, but that's an image that I'm very proud of that one. And I want to do more work like that. I'd like to actually continue doing a couple more illustrations from that story if I could, because that story is just one that like I grew up with. My mom was medieval studies professor, so she read us all the like Arthurian stuff growing up. So that was always a favorite for sure. And then I'll briefly touch on these ones. The one on the right there, that's the first one where I first initially started that first idea of like, what if I electrocuted my skies? So before that, I'd done, swooshing kind of Franklin Booth stuff, but that was the first one where I was like, nah, like let's get some frenetic energy in there. Like, let's like, if it was a sheet, like let's shake it, let's see what happens if we kind of stir the water that these lines are sitting on top of or something. So I really like, and once I finished this drawing, that was immediately when I was like, I have to do a big version of this. Like I have to do this. And to be honest, I don't think I've hit the same like vibe that this one got. since doing this. I've never been able to capture the energy of that right piece. Like I really like the sky on that one. And then the one on the left, that's the Hermit that I did for Pallbearer. The
Oh, that's
original.
okay.
Yeah, so that's the Hermit. It's like my interpretation of the tarot card. Here's the original.
Was this printed on a shirt then?
Yeah, they did shirts and hoodies of this. And I think they still might have them for sale. Last time they came through town on like last fall, and they still had these for sale. So, but yeah, and that one's one too where like went really small. I don't even know if you can see how small that skeleton is, but like here's my finger for comparison. Like,
oh yeah, that's tiny.
Like it's tiny, but he came out. I was blown away. First try too. I was like, whoa, okay, not touching it, you know. But yeah, and that's maybe one of my favorite drawings I've ever done. For whatever reason, like I was just coming off the tail of that job that I had done with Deafheaven and was just really vibing on, like, I had a really good practice going at that moment. And so I just like, I jumped right off and jumped into that one. And it just felt like, so everything just was going smooth. And, my only regret with that drawing is I wish I had a few more stars in there. I think that's Cassiopeia in there, but I wish I had had a little bit more of the stars up in the sky. But yeah, everything about that drawing is definitely a favorite of mine. I really like the idea of, I use skeletons a lot, not because they're like creepy, spooky Halloween, but I like that anybody can project themselves onto it. I don't have to have it be like, that is a man, that is a woman, you know, this is who they are. Like everybody has a skeleton in them. So it's like anybody can see it and be like, oh, that's me. Like I can be that person. And I think that's one of the cool things about tarot in general is, I think if you're practicing with like a tarot deck in a way that's going to be helpful to you, ideally you're putting that, that kind of thought into every card. You know, I am that person, I'm that person, and I'm that person, you know? And so, yeah, I kind of wanted to do that with the Hermit for a long time and just had this idea of the solitary skeleton in the mountains with his lantern. And yeah, I just was really stoked to have a chance to do it, and doing it for Pallbearer, no less. Like that, their like second record was like on repeat for me the year it came out. Like I loved that record. So yeah, getting to work with them was very fun. And like,
I always love that cover. You know who did the those first two Pallbearer?
I can't remember the name. I knew at one point, but yeah, they did the first
signature
one, the
look.
one. Oh yeah, it feels very like, it feels like perfect for that band's aesthetic. You know, it's like proggy but doomy, like fantastic, but also pretty grounded. Like yeah, I those first two covers are very cool. Yeah, big fan of that, and that was something where I was like, I need to try to kind of continue the vibe of this band. You know, like I was pretty aware of what they had been doing aesthetically and musically as well, you know? So it was like, how can I continue that vibe? I do think that this is maybe not as on point for where they had been at for the record that had just come out when this drawing was done, but I kind of didn't care. I was like, I like this drawing, and they've sold really well. So, you know, I was really proud to hear that. You know, when they came through town and they still had that shirt in their merch stand, I was like, that's crazy. You know, that was 3 years ago and it's still out there. So
I've heard they're really nice guys too.
Oh, super sweet. Yeah. I met Brett and I met Joseph, and yeah, we talked for a decent chunk, and they're super sweet guys. I hope I can work with them again someday, because yeah, they were really fun to work with. And their logo is sick too. I like when you get to work with a band with a cool logo. That's a good feeling.
Yeah. All right. So
I'll just touch on these real quick here. I think this is maybe the last slide. So, top left is an currently unreleased black metal record from some of the guys from the Cult Blood. If you know that band, they're like a Portland band, black metal. They're very sick. I'm waiting for that waiting for that album to come out. It's really cool. And for whatever reason, they have not released it, and people need to hear it. It's so sick. They just wanted something with a castle. So I just threw something together for them. That's about it. You know, clearly left some spooky castle, clearly left some space up in the top left for a logo to go, you know?
Yeah, totally.
But then also formatted it in a way where once it was on a tape, I could have it as a wraparound and have the logo centered underneath the castle. So it kind of worked in two capacities, which is always, yeah, I was nervous doing that because it's like this weird kind of quadranty composition of like, it just looks like this kind of X, but it ended up working out for both formats, which I was very stoked about. I'll definitely be posting that whenever that record comes out. Hopefully someday I'll yell at them about that again sometime. And the one underneath that was originally a sketch that I actually did for Dan for the Blackwing job, which ended up not being used. I think he just liked the moon one enough where he was like, let's just use that. So I did, but I had the sketch started. So I was like, I'm just going to finish this. I think that landscape is maybe that particular mountain is the mountain I have drawn the most in Utah. Like that field is like one of my favorite spots to go up to. So I've drawn it quite a few times. This is also the one where the guy asked if there was hidden dark meaning in the piece.
That one?
That's the one. Yeah. Which I don't see it, but if it's scaring you, okay. Then next to that, I have the one with the bird here. That was the shirt that I did for Inter Arma.
Oh, okay.
And they had basically been asking a bunch of artists. They asked Caroline to do one. They had Ethan McCarthy doing one. I think they had like Sin Eater do one. They had a bunch of I felt like I was like I felt like such an imposter being part of that merch drop, but yeah, I did this drawing for them based off of the Paradise Gallows album. They have that song Earth Meets Sky, and that was kind of the one where I was like, okay, like I like that vibe. And I had this amazing photo of I was up hiking in the mountains kind of near my house, and this huge crow was just sitting in front of me, and right as I got up to him and took my camera out to take a picture of him, he swooped right over me. So that's literally what that photo is just this crow. And I liked how he was just this small kind of weird abstract shape kind of floating through the sky. Like it was just kind of, it didn't read necessarily like a bird, even though, that's what it was. So I really liked that detail. And yeah, like working with Inter Arma, that's like, checklist, very sick band to work with. So
yeah, for sure.
Very cool. And then the very last one here is the Lovers drawing that I did that was a private commission for a friend. And so that's literally like him with his guitar and his dog and his wife with their cat and her harp. And that's them. Basically, as these kind of skeletons in their kind of afterlife or something. And yeah, it was really fun to do that piece. It was a big learning curve in like how to deliver a piece with a client and like a private commission that I had never really done before. A lot of clumsiness on my part. Took forever to do the piece, but seeing their reaction to the piece when I delivered it was like it was priceless. Like it was like they love it so much, and it like means the world to see like that piece in their collection. So yeah, and it's
I know what you mean with that.
Yeah, it's like the best feeling in the world when it's like, okay, like nothing else matters about this other than like that they have it. Like that is so cool that I got to do this for them. And it's been nice too, because it's a kind of generic enough idea of just this couple. A lot of people have really vibed with it, and like people have bought prints and shirts of it and stuff, and a lot of people really, so it's like, even though it is technically specifically this couple, it has been something that a lot of people have been able to identify with. I will say it was weird to do this one because I was like working on it in the midst of like my parents divorcing, so I was like kind of in a weird position as far as like how I felt about romantic love at that point. So I think that's shown by them facing away from each other more or less. But
yeah. Good point.
Yeah, I think that was a subconscious decision. I don't think I actively chose to do that, but there it is. But I still like that piece. It is the things that I did right with that one. I feel really proud of. So
I like with the male skeleton, the pose and the design of the figure reminds me of the good qualities of character design and like, all right, the latest Puss in Boots movie. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah. I haven't seen it.
So like,
though.
there's like gesture and sleekness, and like I like how
Mhm.
slim and kind of tapers up. So like I
Thank
love
you.
like
Yeah,
studying like those animators and stuff, and like how they design characters, because there's
totally.
a nimbleness and really good animation that you can like
Yeah,
convey.
and I think that was something I was excited about because I think like it's hard to keep a gesture in a skeleton. So when you can put clothes on a skeleton, it goes a long way to like keep some gesture going. It also really helps that like I kind of again like this was totally subconscious. I was really like back when I did this piece. What year was it? It would have been. I started it in like 2015, I want to say, and I finished it. I wrapped it up in like 2018. But like again, this was one where I just like didn't look at it for months and months at a time. Um, but something that inadvertently kind of showed up is there's like kind of an S curve that shows up in the negative space between the two figures, where the dress kind of interlocks with the shape of the legs that taper up. Um, and that was something that was like pretty inadvertent, but it like led to a really nice kind of puzzly. They click together in a nice way that like even though they are facing different directions, they still feel like one because of the fact that like one is this shape and the other is that shape, you know?
Right. Oh, very cool, man. Here, let me
Thank you. Yeah.
bring us to here.
Cool.
So we've been talking for like
Yeah.
three
Sorry.
hours.
I mean, we had a 20-minute pee break in there too, though. So
Oh yeah.
maybe 10 minutes, but
No, I'm this has been a ton of fun, man. It's been
dude, it's
great.
been so much fun. Yeah. This is awesome.
Obviously, we got to keep in touch, but it's not an episode of Heavy Art Talk if we don't end with the closing question, which is, what would be one piece of advice you would impart to an artist, and somewhere on their journey? Like, what's one thing that you would
Yeah.
want to leave people with?
I mean, there's a couple things that come to mind with that question. The first thing I think of that really helped me settle into a workflow that let me like be patient with my practice was Dylan Carlson from Earth. I've never been able to find the quote attributed. I don't know where I read it, but I remember him saying, "Play slowly and repeat yourself." And to me, like that doesn't apply to my guitar playing by any means, but to drawing, that feels like it's like pull the line and then repeat yourself. Like do it again. And like uh, another thing was like I had a fortune cookie that like changed my life. Um,
I like that
I'm not
line right there.
I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding. And it said,
Christian Degn, I had a fortune cookie that changed my life. One is his
if
t-shirt.
you any of my friends could tell you, I find fortunes on the ground everywhere. Like I'll see one. I'll see one like literally. I picked one up off the ground like 2 nights ago. Like I find them everywhere. I don't know why. Like that size of paper, I'll see it again. Like Raven mode. Uh, but I found one that said, depend on the stability or the steadiness and repetition of life to support you, or the reliability and repetition of life to support you, or something along those lines. But yeah, like the don't be afraid to like repeat yourself. Don't be afraid to like take your time and like let the idea simmer. Like you don't have to be reinventing the wheel every single piece you make. Like you can have variations on a theme and you will find a stronger voice, I think, that way than if you are trying to jump around and like, I want to be a figure person, I want to do landscapes, I want to do environmental studies, I want to do 4-point perspective, it's like I think those are all really good muscles to learn. But I've seen so many kids lose their voices because of art school, where it beats their voice out of them because they're just getting spread thin among all these different practices that are beneficial. But like, if you don't have anything to use them on, what good are they? So that's probably the biggest piece of advice I could give to anybody, is just like keep, like, take your time and don't be afraid to say it again. And like, don't be afraid to rephrase it, whatever that is. If it's music, if it's a poem, if it's drawing, like it's okay to like repeat yourself. Especially because chances are people are not going to see it anyway. Like there are so many times where I've reposted old art and had people be like, "No way, you did a shirt for a Pallbearer?" I'm like, "Yeah, 3 years ago, bro." Like, so, it's like people, like, don't let an audience scare you into thinking they need novelty, because it will be new to them.
Yeah, no, Those are really good points, man. And I haven't heard I haven't heard that exact advice yet out of like the 40 or so episodes I've done.
I know I had to pick. I picked through the episodes. I was like, okay, everybody's knocking my checklist off. I got to come up with something new now. Damn
Yeah,
it! Like,
I like that. No, that's really
cool,
good.
cool.
Well, cool, man. So for anybody tuning in, please follow Christian Degn on Instagram. If you see any of his artwork on merch at a show you're at, buy that shirt. Help support the artists, the bands, the visual arts that support it, and then I don't know, just keep coming back to the episodes, and I'm sure Christian will be back sometime with like a group episode. But let's keep this train going and support the artists who are on this channel, especially Christian. Sound good?
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Thank you, Lee. I appreciate it. And again, like what you're doing here it is a boon for this community, man. Like we do not have. I've not seen this level of like cohesion between like visual artists working in the music scene, like maybe ever. Like I've seen a couple podcasts that kind of come close, but never with specifically metal. So yeah, dude, like keep it alive, brother. I love it.
Thanks, man. Well, stay on for a second. Everybody else, see ya. Thank you so much.